Это история о человеке по имени Стэнли. Стэнли, или сотрудник номер 427, работал в одной фирме, занимающей огромное здание. Работа сотрудника 427 была проста. Он сидел за своим столом в комнате номер 427 и нажимал кнопки на клавиатуре. Через свой монитор он получал указания, какие именно клавиши нажимать, в каком порядке и как долго их удерживать нажатыми. Этим сотрудник 427 и занимался каждый день, каждого месяца, каждого года. И хотя некоторые могут посчитать такую работу слишком нудной, Стэнли был словно создан для нее. Он чувствовал себя абсолютно как рыба в воде. В общем, Стэнли был счастлив. Но однажды произошло нечто примечательное. Нечто, что изменило Стэнли навсегда. Нечто, что он никогда не забудет.
Ну что, всем здорово. Как вы поживаете? Блин, чё-то у меня сейчас откинулся ОБС, прям когда я запустил трансляцию. Может быть, сейчас кто-то сейчас увидел. Вот, ну, бывает, бывает. Так, сейчас. А чё, чат у меня не виден на стриме? Интересно. Сейчас, секунду. Здорово, кокосолапый, здорово, Винг, да я там здорово всем, кто на дачах там сейчас сидит, отдыхает. Так, сейчас я проверю чат. Что-то, походу, с чатом не то. Мгм. Так, надеюсь, меня хоть на стриме слышно. Да, на стриме меня слышно. Ладно, короче, спустя какое-то время я наконец-то смог взять Stanley Parable благодаря сайту Платиру. Вот. Кстати, кому надо, можете туда зайти, там есть много предложений. Там можно Steam кошелек пополнить, поэтому... Так, я понял, сейчас погромче все сделаю. Вот, и, собственно, на сайте Платиру я смог пополнить себе Steam кошелек наконец-то. Там немножко переплата есть, комиссия всего лишь 30 рублей 40. Вот, но, знаете, в целом оно того стоит, чтобы получить деньги на счет Steam и наконец-то купить эту великолепную игру. Вот. Потому что, честно сказать, качать какие-то пиратки вообще не было ни желания, ни сил. Вот. Но в итоге, короче, все получилось. Ладно, давайте перейдем к игре. Сейчас я ее запущу. Вот. Блин, что-то сегодня с Твичом не так, притом у меня конкретно сейчас написано в ОБС, что у меня пропуски кадров идет, но я надеюсь, это сильно не повлияет сегодня на трансляцию. Вот, странно, кстати, почему. Ну ладно. Так. Ща. Все, да, игра у меня запустилась. Сейчас меню сцену. Так, вот игра. Так, если игра будет слишком громкая, то говорите. Я буду ее потише делать. Так. Оп. Так, ну что ж, русский язык выбираем. Так, вы уже играли в Stanley Parable. Короче, смотрите, там, кто еще не знает, то в игре можно пройти первую, еще, по сути, часть, как я понимаю. И я думаю, что мы, наверное, пройдем, в том числе, первую часть, вот Stanley Parable. Потому что я давно в нее играл, наверное, уже лет 6-5 прошло точно. Вот, я очень давно играл. Вот. Ладно, давайте начнем. Так, надеюсь. По звуку вроде норм. Так. Тут еще настройки будут. Так, притащить. Так, тут нормально. Ща. Так, а ну-ка. А вот теперь на стриме будет виден чат? Я сейчас еще раз протестирую. Так, выберите текущее время. Кстати, с выбором времени тут есть прикольная приколюха, то что если тут ставить определенное время и каждый раз перезаходить и менять его, то там могут быть какие-то пасхалки. Сегодня вот узнал. Прикольно. Так, что-то у нас сколько сейчас? Ну вот, если не играли, я думаю, может быть, вам понравится, потому что игра в целом прикольная, высмеивающая построение игр, как оно порой происходит, сторителлинг, поэтому будет, думаю, интересно посмотреть, кто никогда не играл. Не смотрел так. Сделай себя погромче. Это что ж такое-то? Че, меня плохо слышно, что ли? Так. Блин, сейчас я чат, наверное... Сейчас, ребята, я чат подрублю заново. У меня, походу, он вылетел. Секунду. Чтобы просто вы могли себя видеть. Так, сейчас. Это займет какое-то время, секунду. Странно, почему-то, когда я сейчас запарил до трансляции все тестил, у меня все работало. Как только начался стрим, вылетело все, что можно. И стрим, и чат. Сейчас, секунду. Так. Где тут чат-то у нас? Может, со стримлапсом что-то случилось за эти дни? Понятия не имею. Я просто через него чат использую. Так. Так, так. Где тут чат? Сейчас, ребят. Так, вот, чат-бокс. Скопировать. Все, ребят. И все, теперь вы должны видеть, по идее, чат. Напишите что-нибудь в чат, давайте проверим, чтобы потом не отвлекаться, потому что я сегодня хочу игру пройти до конца. Вот, либо значимую часть игры пройти за сегодня. Что-то, блин, все прям сегодня отвисает. Ну-ка. Ладно, короче, понятия не имею. Походу, стрим лапс, может, с ним что-то случилось, но я что-то чат вообще не могу нормально вывести. У меня почему-то вообще не появляется. Ладно, погнали. Так, погнали играть. Если что, я буду с телефона просто вас читать. Просто я хотел просто выводить игру именно. Вот. Так, ладно, погнали. Так, по настройкам, что тут у меня? Все нормально. Просто игру сейчас вот впервые, блин, врубаю. Еще не проверял. Так, ну погнали начать игру. Так.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building where he was employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And
Так.
then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Так, ну, собственно, все. Теперь мне передали управление в игре. Так, я надеюсь, игру нормально слышно. Я повысил звук. Кстати, чат вернулся. Ура! Так, ладно, погнали. Начинаем мы вот с такого кабинета, в котором Стэнли делал свою работу однотипную, про которую уже говорили в заставке. Кстати, если там у кого-то вопросы, например, где, например, русская озвучка, то в апдейте пока ее нет, но я думаю, может быть, в будущем ее прикрутят. Да, ну тут про растягивающие коридоры мы еще не раз поговорим, я думаю, во время стрима. Ладно, погнали.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo. No matter how hard Stanley looked, he couldn't find a
Как вы можете
trace of his
заметить,
co-workers.
он, голос комментирует каждое наше действие. Так. Блин, кстати, классная игра, немножко как будто поменялась, не то ли изменили освещение, или может быть типа того, но теперь намного приятнее выглядит прям для глаза.
Stanley went around touching every little thing in the office, but it didn't make a single difference, nor did it advance the story in it. Stanley clicked on literally every single door in the office, because he doesn't pick up well on cues from his
А
environment.
ну-ка, если сейчас назад пойти, он что-нибудь скажет? Тут дверь закрылась, ну ладно. Так. Так, ну что мы тут можем пока поделать? Тут вообще в этой игре, она как по сути одна большая такая песочница с комедийным повествованием, потому что тут буквально вот надо обо все тыкаться, стукаться, чтобы какие-то приколюхи идти находить. Я помню первый раз, когда я его в первый раз прошел за один присест, просто настолько мне это понравилось. О,
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left.
давайте пойдем в правую.
This was not the correct way to the meeting room, and Stanley knew it perfectly well.
А ну-ка, а если я
Perhaps he
сейчас...
wanted to stop by the employee lounge first, just to admire it.
Ага, назад нельзя, ладно. Нет, правая. Так, это правая комната. Не запутать. Так. Так, ну все пока закрыто. Будет, если не ошибаюсь. Блин, наверное, в первом прохождении, наверное, мне надо было идти прям четко по его инструкциям. Ну ладно.
Ah, yes, truly a room worth admiring. It had really been worth the detour after all, just to spend a few moments here in this immaculate, beautifully constructed room. Stanley simply stood here, drinking it all in.
Не, давайте дальше. Пойдем, не будем
But
стоять на
eager to
месте.
get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left.
Че, идем по его инструкциям или уже начинаем нарушать правила игры и начинаем идти в другие двери? Что скажете? Я, потому что в целом хочу игру сегодня полностью посмотреть. От, так сказать, от А до Я. Нарушаем. Ну, погнали.
Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago.
Так, ну тут можно упасть, я думаю.
Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong foot here. I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting, Stanley.
Ну-ка, если сюда
Someone you
упасть.
forgot. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to you? Why, I don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want to help you, to show you something beautiful. Look, let me prove it. Let me prove that I'm on your side. Give me a chance.
Так. Блин, кстати, если не ошибаюсь, еще надо будет запоминать это построение коридоров, потому что это нам понадобится для получения каких-нибудь других концов.
Now
Ладно.
listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked through the red door.
Не, давайте, может, все-таки в красную взять. Хотя давайте нарушать уже до конца.
Aha, perhaps you misunderstood. Stanley walked through the red door.
Нет.
I still don't think we're communicating properly. Stanley walked through the red door.
Так, не, нифига, я
All right,
назад пойду.
fine, go ahead, Stanley. You want to know so badly what's out there? You want to find out what lies at the end of this road you've chosen? Well, don't let me stop you. You see? There's nothing here. I haven't even finished building this section of the map because you were never supposed to be here in the first place. Broken rooms, exposed developer textures. Is this what you had wanted? Was it worth ruining the entire story I had written out specifically for you? Do you not think I put a lot of time into that? Because I did. And in the end, it was all for nothing. Because this is what you wanted to see. Help me here, Stanley. Help elucidate these strange and unknowable desires of yours. What would have made this game better? What did you want to see? Vehicles? Skill trees? Work with me. You've given me absolutely nothing so far. Tell you what, let me take a stab in the dark at a new design and you can give me some feedback. There we go. A third option. This already feels leaps ahead of where we were before. Go ahead, Stanley. Take it for a spin.
Не, ну раз уж мы решили нарушать, предлагаю нарушать. Пойдем налево.
Okay, I'm going to stop you there. Now, tell me about your experience with this new version. Would you say that the game benefited from allowing you more choices?
Ну, здорово,
Feel
Данила
free
Бонд.
to be honest. I'm looking for some
Так.
real critical feedback here.
Так, насколько... Ну, блин, ну это обычно какая-то комната построенная, блин, на движке СРС, но я не знаю, она пустая. Я однёрку поставил.
A 1? I mean, I can understand if you had reservations, you saw ways the game could be improved to more fully express itself mechanically and artistically, but a 1? That's not even helpful. What am I supposed to do with that? But I guess it isn't my place to judge. Here, based on the data from your previous playthrough, I've compiled a new version. And to be perfectly candid, I think I've knocked it out of the park with this one. Let's take a look.
Ну-ка. Так, походу... А, тут идет просто таблицы всякие. Так, ладно, погнали опять сюда, налево.
Now, would you say
А,
that
да не,
competitive
вроде он сказал
leaderboard
про
helped
комнату.
you feel motivated to keep walking through
Так, ну
doors?
блин, ну...
Again, honest answers, please.
Так, ну эта таблица меня замотивировала, да, немножко, на двойку.
Hey, I nearly forgot. I've got a prototype of a new game I've been working on, and now would be a lovely opportunity to give it some playtesting. You wouldn't mind taking a look at it, would you? Perfect. Let me boot it up.
О, нет, я знаю эту игру, черт.
Towards danger. You
Так.
click the button to move him back to the right, and if he reaches the fire, you fail. It's a very meaningful game, all about the desperation and tedium of endlessly confronting the demands of family life. I think the art world will really take notice. But of course, the message of the game only becomes clear once you've been playing it for about 4 hours. So why don't you give it 4 hours of play to make sure it's effective? Be sure to keep notes on your experience.
Ну чё, чуваки, будем играть в это 4 часа? А ведь тут можно досидеть 4 часа, типа. У меня сегодня время позволяет. Так, ну вы главное, давайте так, ну если реально, типа, хотите 4 часа, чтобы я в это играл, давайте хотя бы в чате о чем-то общаться, то типа, если я так буду жать на кнопку 4 часа, то, ну, ну сами понимаете. Так. Хотя, блин, ну я вообще игру хотел пройти, да, а не сюда сейчас попасть с этим младенцем играть, да. Чё-то это, наверное, не лучшая идея была. Ладно, да, давайте, наверное, сожгем. Если что, потом в конце вернемся.
You heartless bastard. Did you do it because you hate babies or purely to spite me? Because if it's the latter, well, I don't know what to do. I'm completely out of ideas. I can't think of a single thing that might improve the experience for me. I'm not even going to try. I'm out. I'm out. I'm done. It's over. Thank you for playing. Your input was extremely valuable. Oh, hey, since my game was so awful, why don't we play someone else's game? Just to ease the pain. Let's see. What do we have here? Yes, this seems like it'll work. Let's give it a shot.
Так, ну-ка теперь история опять заново началась, да? И... Ого.
Aha, fascinating.
О, это же отсылка на ту игру Firewatch, если не ошибаюсь.
What is our motivation?
Какая себе.
Well, it seems obvious to me that you are meant to play as a creepy man spying on
Кстати,
innocent
прикольная
civilians
игра.
below and
Советую на вечер
uprising your
сыграть.
creep tower, perhaps for some sort of twisted erotic purpose. must
Бля, я
be.
даже не знал, что
What
тут на
a
это отсылка
fascinating
есть.
venture into the experience of total mental depravity. So far, I love everything about
Кстати,
this
можно
game,
было бы ее
Stanley.
как-нибудь на
And
стрим
it seems
пройти,
as
но я
even
думаю,
more.
наверное, все видели уже.
Come, let's venture outward and see what else is out there.
Да ну, нам даже сходить можно будет, ну вот. Чего себе. Ну, я бы не сказал бы, что на Лонгдар похоже. Там, по сути, она как просто, как такой, ну, не игра, а фильм, скорее. Ну, там, по сути, просто, короче, общаешься постоянно там с одним своим напарником всю игру, просто блуждаешь постоянно. Но вот за этим все наблюдать прикольно было. Так, ну, нифига себе. Я сейчас побоялся, что, блин, пропасть. Давайте спустимся. Если реально тут можно бродить, то это классно. Я что-то такого не припомню в первой части.
Oh no. No, it can't be.
Что такое? Что-то ему не нравится.
It is. It's an open world game. Good God, quickly block it off. Oh,
Ну, я...
thank goodness, Stanley. What a close call.
Я только
I
хотел
really wandered off into
прогуляться.
that thing,
Не, игра
that
кайфовая была,
big,
по-моему, проходил
open,
ее прям...
just wandering around, no right or wrong
расслабил все.
directions, no path to
Отличная
follow.
игра,
You can just
абсолютно.
go in any.
Firewall.
Oh, thank heavens we avoided it. We're out of the woods now, Stanley. Okay, I'm going to get us out of here. Let's find another game. Preferably something with walls. Something with nice,
Так, ну-ка, на что ж
big,
теперь будет пародия?
insurmountable walls.
Сейчас. Что ж теперь он загрузит?
Okay, I think this will be just the thing.
Ого! Rocket
Wonderful.
League,
See, this
серьезно.
is exactly what I had in mind. Just a nice big box for you to run around in. There isn't any possibility that you could get lost here. Now this
Wow.
is game design. Stanley, if you manage to get lost in this game, I will be phenomenally impressed. Okay, so what exactly do we do here? Let's see. There are lots of cars here in the back, but obviously there's no racetrack. Okay, I'm seeing that there's a ball of some kind back here. Is
Okay,
this
Mitch.
game sports ball? Stanley, I think it's sports ball.
Что-то
Oh,
я
what
не вижу
fun.
никакого мяча.
We shall run the bases and do a touchdown
Ладно,
together.
так.
Yes, I think surely we must. Okay,
Ну-ка, неужто мы
Stanley,
даже
here's
сыграть
the
сейчас
ball.
можем?
Have fun.
О, погнали. Стоп, хотя стоп, а что если забить себе? Зря я, наверное.
Are you doing it? Are you winning? Is this fun?
Да, кстати,
Is it
тоже
better than
веселее. Я
my
бы тут
miserable
четверочку
little
уже
story
поставил
that I
потом
worked
по его
so hard
таблице.
on? Stanley, I have a thought. And I realize I'm
Так,
not a
давайте, по-моему, в другие
sportsologist,
ворота.
but if one ball generates a certain amount of raw adrenal pleasure, then surely multiple balls makes for an even more euphoric sports
Я думаю, несколько мячей не лучшая
I
идея.
need to try it out. Here comes another ball. Yes. Oh goodness, that really does feel amazing, doesn't it?
Оп.
Stanley, I'm like a
Блин, я ж
child in a
могу забить себе
confectionery
ворот,
shop.
чё
I
делать?
simply have to have more.
О,
I'm
ну-ка.
insatiable. More balls.
Нормально он нам тут наспавнил. Блин, ну мне уже нравится, как они тут в апдейте, блин, сделали новые концовки.
Are you enjoying this, Stanley?
Да, и вправду, мне даже весело.
Is this
Это
a
отличная
real video
видеоигра.
game? Well, I sure hope you're having a good time, because guess what? It's over. That's right. Your little
Кстати, вот
fun
это
comes
было
to an end.
бы
This is my
прикольно играть
game,
4
and what
часа,
I
нежели
say
в ту игру.
goes.
Ну ладно.
You get to have fun when I let you, Stanley. Besides, you need someone like me to set boundaries for you. Without rules or boundaries, video games are nothing. Yes, that's what I am. I am structure. I'm your sense of purpose. And
Ты, что если
hold on,
упасть?
what are you doing? Stanley, don't do that. I can't follow you there. I can't help you. How
Ого,
will you write a story without me? You can't do it. You know that.
вау.
Stanley, come back.
Такого я точно не припомню. В оригинале. Так, ну-ка. Наверное, сейчас разобьюсь. Ого, а это походу отсылка на Кстати, на то время, когда они еще модом были, Stanley Parable, если кто не знал, то это изначально мод был для Half-Life 2. Там как раз такие кабинеты были, я только недавно просто видос про это видел. Фига себе. Блин, ну классно, что они так столько вещей сюда уже добавили. А сколько мы еще не видели. Так, ну-ка, вот вроде наша комната, да. Так, ну вроде что-то сделать я особо не могу. Только нажимать кнопки могу бесконечно. Ладно, погнали дальше. Может быть, тут где-нибудь дверь какая-нибудь есть? Оп.
I wonder what he found. If what he wanted was to be the leading man in his own story, well, perhaps he's gotten it. Down in wherever he is right now. I wonder if he's happy with his choice, and if he's learned the heavy cost that comes with it. He'll understand soon what I was trying to tell him. He needs me. Someone who will wrap everything up at the end, to make sense out of the chaos and the fear and the confusion. That's who I am. That is what I mean to this world. Oh, yes. Yes, I'll be back. There's no other way. Once this ends, after it all comes to a close, then I'll be back. The end will be here soon. Very soon. I can wait.
Ну-ка. А, понял, просто загрузка. Ага, ну и все. Это, видимо, была сейчас первая концовка, которую мы получили. Ладно, идем
All of
дальше.
his co-workers were gone.
Но в этот раз я
What could it
предлагаю
mean?
попробовать,
Stanley
как в
decided to
оригинале,
go to the
просто
meeting
пройти
room. Perhaps he had
по
simply
его
missed a
как раз
memo.
репликам, как он и просит. Так, ну-ка.
When Stanley came to a set of two open doors,
Поехали
he
влево.
entered the door on his left.
Тут, кстати, вроде какая-то есть уборная, в которой можно остаться надолго, если не
Yet there was not a
ошибаюсь.
single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
О, да, вот. Тут вроде что-то
Stanley stepped
сделать
into the
можно.
broom closet, but there was nothing here, so he turned around and got back on track.
Тут вроде бы, если постоять на месте, что-то потом обязательно должно случиться. Но я уже не помню,
There
что.
was nothing here. No choice to make, no path to follow, just an empty broom
Ну, кажется,
closet.
давайте постоим.
No reason to still be here.
Ну вот да, тут можно
It was
просидеть.
baffling that Stanley was still just sitting in the broom closet. He wasn't even doing anything. At least if there was something to interact with, he'd be justified in some way. As it is, he's literally just standing there doing sweet FA.
Все именно так. Ну-ка.
Are you really still in the broom closet? Standing around doing nothing? Why? Please offer me some explanation here. I'm genuinely confused. You do realize there's no choice of
Да,
entering
да,
in
сейчас
here,
тут
right?
концовка будет.
If I'd said Stanley walked past the broom closet, at least you would have had a reason for exploring it to find out. But it didn't even occur to me because literally this closet is of absolutely no significance to the story whatsoever.
Ну, блин, зачем-то ее
I
добавлять-то
never would
надо
have
было.
thought to mention
Потому
it.
что это не по его истории.
Maybe to you this is somehow its own branching path.
Да,
Maybe
может
when you go
быть.
talk about this with your friends, you'll say,
Okay.
"Oh, did you get the broom closet ending? The broom closet ending was my favorite." I hope your friends find this concerning. Stanley was fat and ugly and really, really stupid. He probably only got the job because of a family connection. That's how stupid he is.
Злится
That
на
or
меня
with
этот
drug
диктор.
money. Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers. Well, I've come to a very definite conclusion about what's going on right now. You're dead.
Не, я не
You
умер,
got
я
to
же
this
хожу.
broom closet, explored it a bit, and were just about to leave because there's nothing here when a physical malady of some sort shut down your central nervous system and you collapsed on the keyboard. Well, in a situation like this, the responsible thing is to alert someone nearby so as to ensure that your body is taken care of before it begins to decompose. Hello? Anyone who happens to be nearby? The person at this computer is dead. They have fallen prey to any number of your countless human physiological vulnerabilities. It's indicative of the long-term sustainability of your species. Please remove their corpse from the area and instruct another human to take their place, making sure they understand basic first-person video game mechanics and filling them in on the history of narrative tropes in video gaming, so that the irony and insightful commentary of this game is not lost on them. All right, when you've done that, just step out into the hallway.
Так, и... Давайте пока подождем, я не знаю, я хочу все-таки получить концовку, раз уж я тоже встал. Надо оставаться на своем. Так. Или мне надо уже, ну, типа, выходить просто, ну... Ну ладно, я не прошу тут постоять в целом. Это, по крайней мере, не 4 часа находиться. Кстати, что тут по достижениям, интересно? Понятненько, понятненько. Так, ну что ж. Ладно, пойдемте, наверное, раз в шаре ничего не происходит, как я понимаю. Но если тут надо 10 минут стоять, то я что-то не очень хочу просто тратить время.
Second player. It's good to have you on
Да.
board. I
Да, стоп.
guarantee you can't do any worse. You too? Unbelievable. I'm at the mercy of an entire species of invalids. Perhaps there's a monkey nearby you can hand the controls to. A fish? Fungus? Look, you can hammer out the details. I'm not particularly picky. I'll just be waiting for when you're ready to pick up the story again.
Так, а если я в этот раз выйду, закрою дверь, то опять зайду. Все, да?
Coming to a staircase,
Не-не-не-не-не-не-не-не-не-не.
Stanley walked upstairs to his
Черт,
boss's
все,
office.
меня дверь зажала. Блин, ну ладно, я не хотел бы там еще несколько минут стоять. Вот, что-то ждать. Ладно, погнали наверх. Эх, ну ладно, это было забавно, конечно. Вот. Ладно. Так, ну-ка. Бизнес-стратегия. Интересные тут картины. Лифт. Ладно, давайте к лифту немножко пройти к
Stepping into his manager's
начальнику.
office,
Давайте уже
Stanley was once
подосмотрим, что
again
тут будет.
stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Shocked, unraveled, Stanley wondered in disbelief who orchestrated this. What dark secret was being held from him? What he could not have known was that the keypad behind the boss's desk guarded the terrible truth that his boss had been keeping from him. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret PIN number. 2845.
А,
But of
вот,
course,
4.
Stanley couldn't possibly have known this. Yet incredibly, by simply pushing random buttons on the keypad,
Ну,
Stanley
я
happened
уже и
to
забыл,
input
что
the
тут будет.
correct code by sheer luck. Amazing. He stepped into the newly opened passageway.
Ну-ка. Так, еще вниз. Хм.
Descending deeper into the building, Stanley realized he felt a bit peculiar. It was a stirring of emotion in his chest, as though he felt more free to think for himself, to question the nature of his job. Why did he feel this now, when for years it had never occurred to him? This question would
Да,
not
что-то я
go
вообще не помню эту
unanswered for
локацию,
long.
хотя это, наверное, было в оригинальной игре. Не, ну извини, ее
Stanley
классно,
walked
судя по
straight
тому, что
ahead
я
through the
вижу.
large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Давайте потом вот эти все остальные действия. Давайте вот раз мы уже идем по его действиям, тоже дойдем до того, чего он хочет. Голос диктора. Так. Что у нас написано? 216, 128. Пойди, наверное, какой-нибудь код. Ладно.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out?
А, вот путь появился, окей. Здесь еще такая же аналогичная бумажка.
Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen, and Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in this place where freedom meant nothing.
Мгм. И у последних компьютеров что будет, интересно?
This mind control facility, it was too horrible to believe. It couldn't be true. Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No, he refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never! It was unthinkable, wasn't it? Was it even
Ну-ка, куда
possible?
мы сейчас приедем?
Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof, the heart of the operation. Controls
Блин, сколько тут,
labeled
наверное,
with
выборов
emotions.
есть.
Happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working. All of it monitored and commanded from this very
Ну,
place.
считаем, может
And
быть,
as
в
the
конце
cold reality of
попользуемся.
his past
Ну, а пока
began
что я
to sink
так
in,
пока буду игру
Stanley
проходить.
decided that this machinery would never again exert its terrible
А так я помню,
power
да, то что-то
over
можно
another
было
human
вводить.
life. For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Так, ну-ка и... Оп. Ну, в том числе, походу, это и Стэнли задело, да?
Blackness
А,
and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold?
Так, сейчас, ребят, буквально секунду. Подождите, на телефон звонит еще. Так, я здесь постараюсь в следующий раз так надолго не отходить.
But as sunlight
Продолжим.
streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Все, отлично. Прошли по оригинальному сюжету. Теперь я предлагаю начать ломать игру. Так, ща. Для начала я помню, там был лифт. Я хочу пройти к тому лифту. Почему бы и нет? Да. Так. Так, мы пошли налево. Так, сюда. Не будем сейчас прослушивать уже тут диалог, что слушали. Кстати, а что если опять зайти сюда?
Not again. I won't be part of this. I'm not going to encourage you. I'm not going to say anything at all. I'm just going to be patient and wait for you to finish whatever it is you enjoy doing so much in this room. Please take your time.
Ладно. Так, погнали теперь к кабинету, и там был лифт напротив его офиса. Хочу туда пройти. Ну-ка, если поехать вверх, что будет? Неужто это отсылка на ту мини-игру, которая еще в Грисмоде есть? Была карта такая с лифтом. Так, главное не забыть, что мы еще поехали вниз. Вот. Все, приехали. Нет, стоп, что-то я не понял. Ладно, поехали наверх. Да, он, походу, реально не едет. А, я что-то уже понадеялся. Вот. Ладно. Ну, так точно, да? Ладно, окей. Тогда погнали в комнату с директором. Вроде тоже что-то можно делать.
Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. What could it mean? Stanley wondered aloud to
Так,
nobody.
ну-ка. А
He
что если
began
ввести
wildly
неправильный
tearing
код?
through papers on the boss's desk, pulling books off the shelf, looking behind paintings, desperate for clues to his situation. But his attention was caught by a keypad behind the boss's desk. What could its purpose be?
Ну-ка, что
In
там будет
fact,
говорить?
this keypad guarded the terrible secret that lay buried below his feet. And so the boss had assigned it an extra secret pin number, 2845. But of course, Stanley couldn't possibly have known this.
Стоп, почему я тут вижу какой-то... Вот. А, понял. Так, ладно.
Stanley just sat around twiddling his thumbs. Trying to input anything on the device was useless, since he could never possibly know that the combination was 2845.
Ну-ка, если неправильно ввести, то...
2845.
Тоже, да, никакой особой реакции, видимо, не будет. Так.
Forgot, but it turns out that the panel's emergency override kicked in, and the door just opened all by itself, and Stanley got the hell along with the story. Well, whoop-de-doo.
А что если теперь ввести этот правильный код? 2, 8, 4... Блин. Плюс 2, 8, 4, 3. А, 2, 8, 4, 5 было, точно, точно. Сейчас 2, 8, 4, 5. Ну-ка. И все? Ничего более? Осуждаю, кстати. Осуждаю, что молчать пишете. Ну ладно. Мгм. Ай, ладно, поехали. Кстати, вверх можно ли нажать? Нет, только вниз. Окей.
Stanley walked straight ahead through
Так,
the
побежали
large door
налево.
that
Тут
read
escape был.
Mind Control
Даже
Facility.
интересно, что будет.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley would meet his violent death. The door behind him was not shut. Stanley still had every opportunity to turn around and get back on track. At this point, Stanley was making a conscious, concerted effort to walk forward and willingly confront his death.
Вероятно, этому умру, да. Ладно. Чё бы и нет. Мгм.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley was inched closer and closer to his demise, he reflected that his life had been of no consequence whatsoever.
Интересно, смотрите,
Stanley
сюда можно?
conceived a bigger picture. He doesn't know the real story, trapped forever in his narrow vision of what this world is. Perhaps his death was of no great loss, like plucking the eyeballs from a blind man. And so he resigned and willingly accepted this violent end to his brief and shallow life. Farewell, Stanley.
Ну, блин. О,
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley was led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, Stanley was obliterated as the machine crushed every bone in his body, killing him instantly.
о. Ладно, пойдемте.
And yet it would be just a few minutes before Stanley would restart the game, back in his office, as alive as ever. What exactly did the narrator think he was going to accomplish?
Ну-ка.
When every path you can walk has been created for you long in advance, death becomes meaningless, making life the same. Do you see now? Do you see that Stanley was already dead from the moment he hit start?
Мгм. Блин, кстати, вот такой комнаты что-то не припомню в оригинале. Ну, походу, концепт-арты какие-то, типа. Так, тут авторы игры обозначены и компьютеры. Блин, ну прикольно так походить, посмотреть. Ранняя версия служебной комнаты. М. Блин, забавно. О, кстати, велик вроде прям один в один, как на Сурсе есть там в типа там в игре Counter-Strike Source или там в Gris моде том же самом. Кстати, вот интересный факт, но я что-то вообще, несмотря на то, что я слежу за многими игровыми выставками, но как-то я пропустил новость о ультра делюкс издании, так сказать, для Стэнли Парабл. Вот только вот недавно про нее узнал. Вот удивительно, что ее на Game Awards анонсировали. Ну ладно, ни одной новости просто не видел. Мгм. Так, ну это все понятно. Короче, тут типа музей игры. Не знаю, интересно, может, это смотреть или нет. Но я думаю, надо идти дальше. Вот. Тут что-то что тут находиться. Ну-ка, тут у нас еще что тут? Ну, кстати, выход.
Oh, look at these two. How they wish to destroy one another. How they wish to control one another. How they both wish to be free.
Хотя, стоп, дайте угадаю. Наверное, сейчас я его выключу, то она, наверное, полностью вырубится. Что я подозреваю. Ну ладно, если что, перезапущу. И...
Can you see? Can you see how much
А,
they
не.
need one another? No, perhaps not. Sometimes these things cannot be seen. But listen to me. You can still save these two. You can stop the program before they both fail. Push escape and press quit. There's no other way to beat this game. As long as you move forward, you'll be walking someone else's path. Stop now and it'll be your only true
Так, ну
choice.
хорошо, давайте так и сделаем.
Do choose it. Don't let time choose.
Выйти в меню. Так, и теперь начнем.
This is the story of a man named
Так, ну это мы
Stanley.
смотрели.
Stanley worked for a company.
Так, и... Ну ладно, наверное, на этом это была концовка, что типа мы просто перезапускали вот так игру и
All of
все.
his co-workers were gone.
Ну ладно, пойдемте дальше. Ну, кстати, интересно,
Stanley
потому
decided
что
to
то,
go to the
оказывается, видео, это,
meeting
видимо,
room.
новое.
Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Как раз для вот этого нового издания. О, новый контент. Чуть не припомню этой двери. Давайте просто
Oh,
зайдем.
new content? What does that mean, new content?
Ну-ка. Давайте глянем. Наверное, зря я ее запустил. Наверное, сначала надо было весь оригинал пробежать с вами. Ну ладно. Ну-ка.
Hello, and thank you for playing the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe. As you may know, the Stanley Parable was a video game released in 2013 on home computers. After receiving critical and commercial success, it was expanded upon in 2022 with the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, a reimagining of the game for consoles and home computers. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe features exciting new content that broadens and expands the world of the Stanley Parable, delighting audiences the world over. Please step inside and see what thrilling new adventures await in the Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe.
Oh, well, this sounds delightful. I'm very excited to see the thrilling new Ultra Deluxe content.
Так, ну погнали. Сейчас посмотрим, что тут будет.
Okay, so far it's an elevator. Nothing special yet, but I'm sure it's just the beginning of a mesmerizing adventure. Is it broken? What's going on here? Should we be moving somewhere or... Oh, there we go. All right, finally, at long last, it's on to the new content. I've never been more ready. Let's do it.
Ну уже что сейчас будет, даже интересно. Получается, реально тут, наверное, какая-то новая часть контента очень большая есть, которая теперь есть доступ будет. Ну, если вкратце, то пока ты отходил, Винг, то я увидел музей разработчиков, там, где, типа, показывают концепты всякие игры и так далее. Вот, и после этого там я пошел по главному коридору, и появилась новая дверь под названием «Новый контент». Мы прошли туда, и нам сделали экскурсию про то, что вот мы сейчас играем в так называемую Ultimate Deluxe версию, где добавлены новые материалы. Сейчас нам их покажут. Вот, и я только вот начал ехать по лифту как раз в новом контенте.
The content, Stanley. All right, let's see, it's the jump circle.
О, наконец-то прыгать можно. Да ну. Блин, помню, в первой части же нельзя было, и в целом, ну, типа, мы тут не можем, только тут. Классно. Так. То есть все, больше я пропрыгать не могу. Блин, я понял, думаю, просто задание выполнится. Ну ладно, погнали дальше.
Is that it? Surely that's not all the new content. There has to be something else, right? Goodness. Another elevator. Stanley, I have to say, initial impressions of this game are not positive. It's just elevators and jumping. Is this what passes for exciting new content? If this is new content, then I could just read you the whole dictionary. There's 20 hours of new content right there. Hell, I could count to 30 trillion. You could put that on the box. The Stanley Parable Ultra Deluxe, now with over 1,000 hours of new content. And oh, wait. There's more. Very good. Yes. I knew there had to be something else. Let's see it. I'm ready for whatever it is. That's it? Oh, you've got to be kidding me. You see, Stanley?
Блин, зато
This
стул
is
еще
what
есть.
happens
Что?
when
Нормально?
greedy video game developers with no respect for their fan base rush a cheap expansion to market for no reason other than to make an easy dollar. And don't get me started on the level of craftsmanship that's gone into it. In fact, I'm looking right now at the game's achievements, and it's hard to believe one of them actually says, "Test achievement, please ignore." What quality assurance department signed off on this? I'm infuriated and I'm offended, and I intend to find these people on Twitter and hold them personally accountable. It's my fault, Stanley. I built up too much anticipation around the new content, I'm afraid. It could never have lived up to such expectations. If you're
О,
still
здоровья,
with me,
здорово,
why don't we
Маффин,
just
закрас.
reset the game, and we'll try to get back to
Не,
what the
кстати, тут
Stanley
же вроде
Parable is
есть
really about. No
сужающие
frills,
коридоры.
no gimmicks.
Вот.
Just you and me
Просто
having
я
a
их,
great
видимо,
time together,
скипнул.
like always.
Ну еще потом, может быть,
What do you say,
к ним подойдем.
friend?
Так, блин, пропустил. Ладно. Так. Ага. Ты немножко каком-то изменилось. Блин, да, это уже не то, что раньше.
Stanley, come over here. In the
Ну-ка.
vent. I want to
Я
show
предлагаю
you
пока что ходить
something.
по новым материалам, как раз как требует этого диктора, потом уже будем ходить по-другому. Хм.
Okay, you remember how cheap and unsatisfying the new Ultra Deluxe content turned out to be? Well, it got me thinking about the past and how much better the Stanley Parable used to be. So I made something special and tucked it away here where the game's developers won't find it. Just our little secret. Take a look. I call it the Memory Zone. It's where I've been storing all my favorite memories so I can relive the peak experiences of my life whenever I want. Experiences like the launch of the Stanley Parable on PC.
Блин, кайфовые тут локации, конечно. Мне очень нравится, как они построены тут. Вот прям бы стоял бы и наслаждался ими. Так.
You see, Stanley, doesn't the Memory Zone remind you of how wonderful Stanley Parable was before it was sullied with a cheap re-release? Remember back in October of 2013, when the game originally launched? Back then, video games had integrity. Back then, it all meant something. Oh, the waste.
Блин. Прикольно. Видимо, оригинальные скриншоты игры. Ладно, погнали дальше. Так, что тут у них? Типа, первый доллар. Саундтрек с игрой. Демка. Кстати, в демку я вроде играл когда-то, почему-то мне кажется. Ну ладно. Кстати, вот это у меня не выполнено вроде бы. Достижение. Хм.
And over here is where I keep reviews of the Stanley Parable. Like this stunning triumph of games journalism, 10 out of 10 from Destructoid.com. James Stephanie Sterling writes, and I quote, "Where so many games that aspire to be more than games end up less than any form of art, Stanley Parable strives and then succeeds to be every game ever created." Did you hear that, Stanley? Every game ever created. That's how grand and all-encompassing the original Stanley Parable was. It was literally every game ever created. It was Skyrim, it was Persona 3, it was all of them, and now it's nothing. It's no games at all. It isn't even the Stanley Parable anymore. It's just a husk now. A lifeless husk with an hour of new elevator content.
Да ладно, может не так все плохо. Мне кажется, надо просто еще заценить те новые материалы. О, кстати, концовка с Майнкрафтом, помню ее. Только не помню уже, как ее получить. Так, тут сюда доступа нет. Блин, я даже не знаю, что сказать. Мне в целом нравится сейчас
Here's
наблюдать за
another
всем
moving
этим.
passage,
И
this
слушать как
time
раз
from
диктора.
GameSpot.com. The Stanley Parable is both a richly stimulating commentary on the nature of choice in games and one that offers some of the most enjoyable, surprising, and rewarding choices I've ever been confronted with in a game. 9 out of 10. Don't you get it, Stanley? The game was perfect. It didn't need anything else. It didn't need new content. It just needed to be left alone, to spend the rest of time collecting dust in the hallowed hall of beloved video game memories.
Блин, туда я что-то пройти особо не могу. Серьезная комната 2012. Ладно. А куда теперь? Так, ну... По идее, нам открыть шестую дверь с коробками, но я что зайти не могу. Да, пробел не работает. Ну, как раз пройти можно было бы.
These were simpler times, Stanley. But I wouldn't give to go back to have it all over again. Wait, hang on. I don't recall this part of the memory zone before. What's this? What's down here? Oh no. Oh God, no. Stanley, it's a collection of reviews from Steam, the online video game distributor. I haven't looked at these in years. I can't even imagine what's been collecting down here. Surely these reviews were glowing as well, weren't they?
Как они классно тут все это демонстрируют, типа.
Honestly, I could not be bothered to play this game to full completion. The narrator is obnoxious and unfunny, with his humor and dialogue proving to be more irritating.
Интересно, это реальные комментарии?
Unfunny. I'm not trying to be funny. I'm trying to make a serious work of art. I suppose I could write up a handful of gags to insert into the Stanley Parable, but the game is already such a densely layered web of profound philosophical insights that I can't even imagine where I'd have the room to stick them.
А там еще какой-то плохой комментарий, давайте глянем. Чё хорошие практически не видно. Ну ладно.
Okay, let's see what this one says. While the idea for the game is good, for someone who prefers non-linear games, this preachiness gets annoying fast. Preachy? Stanley? I'm not preachy, am I? You can tell me if I'm preachy. Honestly, you can. Oh, goodness. This is actually quite shocking for me. Well, to be honest, I had always thought of the game's dialogue as being rather terse to begin with. You can't know how much fluff I cut from the game to get it to feel as light and airy as it... Well, I always thought it did. But maybe it wasn't. Dear, what an awful memory to have to hold on to. These black marks on my otherwise unimpeachable track record. I feel like a failure. Like I let these people down. Perhaps the Stanley Parable isn't quite as sterling as I always remembered. What's this one got to say? You constantly have to stop doing anything so the narrator can catch up with his long-winded explanations of what's happening. I wish there was a skip button. A skip button? Well, yes. Yes,
Ну-ка, реально добавят?
If I'm truly too preachy, then maybe letting you skip ahead for just a moment, surely it couldn't hurt. Not if it means we can strike these negative reviews from the record. Only positive reviews of the Stanley Parable. That's my motto today, and it's always been my motto. I'd do anything for the customer, Stanley. Yes, a skip button we shall have. And here it is. Go ahead and give it a shot. I'll pop you forward in time so that the second my incessant droning starts to bore you, with just the push of a button, you'll have zipped right past it. It's what the players have been asking for, and I'm very proud to have delivered. No more listening to me rambling on and on and on. No.
Не, я хочу его послушать теперь.
Is a game
Так,
for the
ну-ка.
people. And if the people want silence, then by goodness, that's what they're going to get. Well, don't sit around waiting for me to shut up. Go ahead and make me shut up. Here, We'll pretend that I've just begun
Ну-ка,
an interminable
давай.
monologue.
Мне даже
And
интересно,
here's
сколько это
something like this.
продлится.
The story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a moment before lunchtime. It can't be. It's the only thing there is. How many billions left until so much more than forever ago? Which is why I say, the story and the choices, or what have you, and therefore by becoming it is, so on and so forth, until inevitably we all until the end of time, at which time everything all at once. So now you see, blah 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 blah. We've eaten too much and it can't be just yet. No, no, until 245. That the logic of elimination working backwards, the deduction therefore becomes impossible to manufacture. It went on for nearly 10,000 years, until just yesterday, here and there, forward and back, and never a
Ладно,
moment
я
before
он реально долго
lunchtime.
будет болтать.
Can't
Погнали
be.
дальше.
It's the only thing there is. Oh, you're back, you
Ну, я
see.
как-нибудь
You
найду,
were
я
only
просмотрю этот
frozen
момент,
in
либо
time
сам
for a
потом
few
сяду.
minutes,
Даже
but it
было бы
was plenty
интересно.
of time for me to deliver a long, rambling monologue full of unnecessary verbal flourishes and lengthy ruminations on the nature of choice in video games. Of course, I happen to believe it was perhaps one of my more profound such ruminations. Not that, of course, you need a description of it, but if I had to describe it, I'd say it was perhaps less of a rumination and more of a treatise. Or maybe a manifesto. Look, I'll outline it for you very briefly, and you can tell me what you think. Okay, so my theory is that any choice you've ever made is simply a series of choices made by the person who you are, or were, or will be at the time of having made said choice. Well there, sport. You really did catch me rambling on a bit, didn't you? But that's the power of the button. The minute I start to go off on a thoughtless display of self-absorption, it's right at your fingertips to go poof, and it's all over. Oh, I can't wait to see what Cookie 9 will say about this, and whether they'll edit the rating of their Steam review.
Кстати, интересно, изменить их, но или нет. Если это
To be
реальный
honest, I don't
комментарий.
even know if one can change the
Ладно,
review in the
погнали.
first
Оп.
place. Okay, welcome back, Stanley. Now,
Так.
I should say that the amount of time the button has been skipping through is becoming longer and longer. That last one was, well, I want to say maybe 30, 45 minutes? It's not unendurable by any means, but it's, well, there's really only so
Кстати,
much I can ramble on to myself
там
about.
часы
I know
впереди,
it's
они, кстати,
shocking,
показывают
isn't it?
радиореальное
But at
время,
any
при
rate,
том,
I do suggest that
что
we not
интересно.
press the button again. I think the skip button
Так,
has
ладно.
been aptly demonstrated, and we...
Дальше.
Stanley, please don't push the button again. It's been 12 hours. You've just been frozen there. I don't know why the skips are getting longer, but they're really, truly getting longer. And
Так,
my
ладно,
God...
давайте бы дальше.
Oh, Stanley, you're back.
О,
You're
наконец-то.
back. Oh my goodness. I have someone to talk to again.
Походу, там реально очень длинный
Stanley,
диалог, наверное, часов
I
реально
think it's
12
been a week.
каких-нибудь, что-то мне кажется.
Or 2 weeks. I've been sitting here all that time, just sitting here, not a single person to speak with. And you'd think that that's just how it's always been, right? Me talking and you saying nothing. Would you think that it's exactly the same as always? Doesn't that feel like what we've already been?
Я понял, опять. Опа.
Oh, hello, it's you. You're here again. Welcome. I have had time to think about you and about us and about everything we've been through. I've had so much time, I stopped keeping track after a year. Have you ever sat down in one place and not moved for one entire year? Let me describe it for you. To begin with, there is only regret. There is only the turning wheel of missed opportunities. I felt nothing at all but regret for the longest time, Stanley. Days, months. I lost it all in a blur of...
Микрофон отходит в сторону за звуки. Так. Так, а что дальше-то можно делать? Чё, неужто все? Ну ладно, ничего не остается, видимо, кроме как нажать кнопку пропуска. По достижению прыгать нельзя. Ладно. Мне почему-то дали достижение за то, что я не прыгал. Чизы, кстати, упали. Так, опять же таки, тут ничего, наверное, не произошло. Я понял. Там нажать нельзя. Ладно.
But they didn't understand the game was never meant to be funny. It was meant to have a point. It was meant to speak to the human condition. But where are the jokes? Where are the jokes? They bemoaned, they screamed, they gnashed their teeth and said, entertain us. It wasn't enough. They had to leave a pathetic little thumbs-down review and make all of their pitiful demands. But then, he's talking too much, they said. First, he didn't entertain us, now he won't shut up. It's the inconsistency, it's the...
Да, это будет бесконечно, наверное, и долго. Ну ладно. Так, и что ж теперь? Кнопка не работает. А, не, работает.
The end is never the end, 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 is never
Разы
the end, is
загрузки.
never the end, is 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 never the end.
Тоже, да, ничего не происходит. Давайте опять обойдем. Ну-ка. Вода, кстати, капает. Окей, но больше тут вроде ничего не изменилось. Ладно, погнали дальше. Вода уже окончательно прорвалась, видимо, тут из труб. Окей, дальше. Единственный вопрос, куда дверь пропала, с которой мы зашли. Ну ладно. Ай, дальше поехали. Прям машина времени какая-то, честно сказать. Сейчас скриншот сделаю. Так, ладно, next. И диктор уже замолчал окончательно. Так, сколько же это еще продлится? О, неужто наконец-то выход есть? Да, нормально, так мы проскипали. Давайте вперед пойдем. Хотя, стоп. А, я понял. Я что-то захотел сохраниться на всякий, а то, блин, не хотел бы потерять цепочку, да ладно. Так, ну да, вроде бы мы идем. Все? Вот, конечно, вопрос. А если бы я еще раз промотал,
All
то
of his
что было
co-workers
бы?
were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room.
Так,
Perhaps
ладно.
he had simply missed a memo.
Я что-то немножко устал, пока это шла новая касцена с новым контентом. Новый контент. Окей, ладно. Ну, давайте пойдемте, чё.
Oh, good. You noticed my sign. Yes, I have something very exciting to show you.
Так, что же нам теперь расскажут? Интересно. А, нам не делали никаких презентаций, я понял. Угу. 5 лифт.
You see, Stanley, I've been reflecting on the Stanley Parable and about how roundly disappointing this ultra deluxe version has turned out to be. The original Stanley Parable was a landmark, and any new content for it should live up to that legacy. So forget this ultra deluxe nonsense. I say we take it one step even further. Which is why I'm very proud to announce for the first time ever the Stanley Parable 2.
Да? Вторая часть? Хм.
Yes, you see, isn't this far superior to a measly re-release with a few minor additions? Think of all the new territory we'll cover with a fully
Да,
fledged
сиквел был бы уже
sequel, an
лучше
entirely
какой-то
new
улучшенной
experience,
версии.
built from the ground up. Why, there are so many possibilities. It could go in so many different directions. This is what fans have truly been asking for. Calling it the Stanley Parable 2 is just so much catchier than Ultra Deluxe, don't you think? Ultra Deluxe? What does it even mean? But the Stanley Parable 2, now that's an artistic statement right there. It's future-oriented. It screams progress and innovation and long-term franchising potential.
Так, хорошо, а дальше-то что?
Now, to be clear, I haven't quite nailed down what exactly the Stanley Parable 2 is going to be, but let's take a look at some of the features I've been developing for it. I figure that if I can loosely organize a handful of interesting concepts, that surely the game will sort of naturally spring up around them. It'll all work itself out. Game development is much more of a fuzzy magic than anything scientific or logical, really.
Ладно, идем сюда.
Here we are. Go on, try out some of the new features.
Вау. Нормально, мы сейчас тут ходить, думаю, будем. Интересно, что себе заскриншотить? Интересно, потом будет глянуть. Так. Прыжковой круг. Бесконечная гора, к самим игрока, запустившегося. Ну-ка. Сейчас. Ого, да тут целый прям комплекс. Так, ладно. И давайте, например, в раздел Б пойдем. Даже интересно, что там. Значит, получается, кнопка скажет наше имя, кто играет сейчас в игру. Окей. Погнали.
For the Stanley Parable 2, I asked myself, what do players really want? And of course, the first and most obvious answer is that they want to be individually recognized and validated as people. So with that in mind, my first addition to the game is this button which speaks the name of the person playing the game. Isn't that wonderful?
Так, ну давайте попробуем.
Jim. Sorry, I should have clarified. Right now, the button only says the name Jim. But of course, in the final game, this button will say your name.
Блин, серьезно, я думал...
Let's have you role play as Jim to really simulate the full experience of this feature. Just play along. I promise you'll love it. Okay, here we go. Let's take a deep breath, clear your mind, forget whoever you are, and simply become a person named Jim. I want you to... Jim. Whoa, hold on. I wasn't finished setting up the backstory. If you don't properly roleplay as Jim, then you'll never understand the impact of this button. Otherwise, it's just a stupid button that says somebody else's name. Okay, we're doing it again, and this time let me finish first. Now, allow yourself to become Jim. Imagine yourself driving to work as Jim, playing frisbee on the weekends as Jim, staying up all night for a popcorn and horror movie sleepover as Jim, developing a crippling substance addiction as Jim, rediscovering yourself through fringe religious groups as Jim, and finally dying a slow death at an old age, surrounded by members of your cult as Jim. Do you feel it in your soul? Are you really, truly Jim right now? If so, then please step forward and press the button.
Jim.
Yes! You see? What a thrill! What a rush! That was you! The button described you. Do it again, do it again.
Интересно, если Steam назвать Джим, то, типа, будет ли какая-то другая информация?
It hits even harder the second time. If this were the only new feature in the Stanley Parable 2, it would still be worth the money. Let's take a break from the Jim button. I'm too emotionally drained from all of this personal validation.
Так, ладно, погнали-то в другой коридор. Блин, ну прикольно. Я даже не думал, что тут есть прям такой будет большой комплекс, где можно будет всякие штуки делать. Погнали-то дальше.
I suppose I could allow only people named Jim to play the Stanley Parable 2. That would actually save me the work of finishing this feature.
Так, что-то у нас дальше. Может быть, давайте сходим на бесплатную ачивку. На Q. Ага. Просто дернуть рычаг.
Now, here's something special. You remember that broken test achievement that got left in the game on accident? Well, I'm developing a technology to simply give you the achievement. Yes. You see, you'll come to this lever, and when you pull it, the achievement will be given to you. It's as simple as that. Okay, perhaps I should have clarified. This is technology that will exist. Right now, the achievement is still fully broken. I'm not a wizard, Stanley, but I guarantee it will be fixed in the sequel to at last satisfy the hordes of ravenous fans all over the world who have been uproariously demanding this feature. Gamers, we hear you, and I promise it will happen.
Блин, ну ладно. Накармливал нас ожиданиями, ну блин. Ладно, погнали-то в другую локацию, раз что мы тут уже тоже ничего пока сделать не можем. Я так понимаю, тут сейчас так везде будет примерно.
What else? What other exhibits haven't we seen yet?
Так, погнали-ка на Джим. На короче, на круг
You
с
know what?
прыжка.
Let's bring the jump circle back for Stanley Parable 2 as well. It's oh wait. You already spent all your jumps the first time we saw the jump
Да,
circle.
потратил.
Oh well. I suppose it can just be a nice decorative piece then.
Че, серьезно? И даже прыгнуть нельзя? Ну, блин. Обламывает нас он, обламывает. Так. Окей, погнали назад, наверное. Мерч. Окей. Посмотрим, что за одежду он продает. Кстати, а вот интересно. А вот этот QR-код, он вообще копируется или нет? Я пробовал с телефона засканить. О, прикиньте, тут ссылка на сайт ведет. Ну тут, конечно, нет мерча никакого. Но тут есть пару видосов. Я думаю, они довольно-таки веселые, просто там на английском. Ну, короче, да, если там кто-то проходить игру будет, то можете сюда заглянуть. Можно будет реально просканить этот код. Там видосы есть несколько. Так, это от разработчиков. Ну ладно. Так, окей, что там еще у нас там было? Так, сейчас только что-то оставлю себе на телефоне. Так, что там дальше у нас? Настройки мировых чемпионов. Окей, где это у нас? Там у нас. Что-то еще будет потом. Stanley Parable, что-то там. Баскет. Это у нас B2, понял. Ну там неподалеку. Окей. Погнали теперь там посмотрим, что есть.
Okay, I'll be honest, I haven't yet decided on this one. I think that in the new version, the office could use a bit of decoration, like balloons. But I'm undecided on get well someday and happy 12th birthday. Which
Мне
would you
кажется,
go
уже
with?
поправляется.
You know, sometimes when you solicit another person's opinion, it makes you realize that you knew which one you actually really wanted all along.
Эх,
Happy 12th birthday, step-niece, it is.
ладно. А, теперь везде эти шары, наверное, сейчас будут.
Or
Ну ладно.
actually, maybe I should have gone with... No. No, I've made my decision, we're moving on.
Так, я вот не понимаю, как на эту решетку зайти? Она, наверное, сверху, имеется в виду.
A common complaint of the Stanley Parable was that it was confusing and paradoxical, that it engendered a chaotic sense of reckless despair in those who played it. Well, I am happy to say that after much consideration, I've engineered a clever solution to this fundamental problem with the game. It's the Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket. You see,
И
Stanley,
где это ведро?
anytime you're holding the bucket, a sense of calm and ease will fill your mind and your heart. It's true. As long as you hold on to the bucket, the many disorienting contradictions of the Stanley
вот.
Parable will feel
Да, его
perfectly
типа стянули
normal
вниз
and perhaps
сверху.
even
Блин, ну.
comforting. You may even come to long for the gentle embrace of jarring cognitive dissonance while the bucket is in your arms. And to be honest, it's a much more convenient solution for me than actually redesigning the game to be less uncomfortable. Can you imagine what a pain in the ass that would be? Yes, the bucket is the perfect solution. Come on, give it a try.
Ну-ка, давайте форму вводить.
Can you feel it? The glow of comfort, even in the face of crushing despair,
Ну-ка,
must
можно я с ним
already be
уйти?
sweeping through your body. And in fact, can I say that I do believe the bucket lends you an air of charisma as well? I think that just holding it has made you the slightest bit more attractive as a person. The benefits of the bucket seem to go on and on, don't they? All this and more await you in the Stanley Parable 2.
Ладно, зато теперь у нас есть ведро.
Does anyone give out awards for most enjoyable bucket in a video game? That really should be an award if it isn't already.
Так, что-то я в итоге не нашел, как зайти в настройки мировых чемпионов. Ну ладно. Хотя, наверное, сверху как-нибудь. Так, пилок. Так, сейчас, чуваки, секунду. У меня тут что-то... Какие-то шумы за дверью. Сейчас проверю. Так, я тут. Так, фигня какая там происходит. Так, собственно, где у нас решетка? Так я ее там и нашел. Ладно, погнали пока дальше. Мы там еще не были. Если что, увидим, зайдем. Наверное, сюда надо пройти на второй этаж.
An epilogue would be fun, wouldn't it, Stanley? Yes, yes, it would go at the end of the, well, we'll figure that out later.
Ладно. Так. О, чемпион мира по настройкам. Ну-ка. Не понял. А чё оно закрыто? Что, в настройках надо что-то сделать? Ладно. Если кто-то знает, скажите в чате, что сделать надо. Я посмотрел бы. Ну, видимо, там что-то думать надо. Погнали-то дальше пока. Не будем тут останавливаться. Вот там, например, вот есть коллекционная предметка какой-то. Может, сейчас подойти узнать. Так, ну-ка, коллекционки. Что сейчас есть, наверное, коллекционный принт состоит собирать? Или что там?
Ah, collectibles. Now it's a real video game. In the Stanley Parable 2, you'll run around gathering up these miniature Stanley figurines. And what's truly innovative is that there will be no reward for collecting all of them. I don't want to stifle the intrinsic joy of watching a number go up. You simply collect all of them, and then you move the hell on with your unremarkable life.
Лицевую мишку сделали. Прикольно. Но если будет еще, если хранить
God,
можно
when
собирать, то
is
можно
the worst when you
пособирать.
collect everything in a video game and then they give you a big fancy reward for it? Absolutely tragic.
Так, бесконечная дыра. Ну погнали к ней, она вроде последняя остается у нас.
Stanley, here's an idea that I'm truly fond of. It's never been done before in a video game.
Ну-ка.
This is in fact a hole
Чё он хочет
that you can
предложить?
fall down forever. That's right. Infinite falling. You can fall until the end of time if you like. A stunning leap forward for video games as a medium.
Ну, давайте прыгнем.
You see, isn't it wonderful? One of my more ingenious concoctions, if I do say so. Now then, since you've gotten to see the infinite hole, you can press the teleport button to pop back up to the top, and we can continue onward. Now, I don't mean to be a bummer, but I do recommend you use the teleport button to go back to the top. Maybe do it on the sooner rather than later spectrum of things.
Да ладно, давайте до конца долетим.
Okay, Stanley. I don't know quite how to say this tactfully, but it's possible that I slightly exaggerated the infinite nature of the hole. Is it a very, very deep hole? To be certain it is. It's an extremely deep hole. I don't want anyone to say that it isn't an astonishingly deep hole. It is.
Короче,
Great.
понятно.
Now, I'm very
Да,
excited
наверное, он
to show you
разбивается, и
even
теперь
more
все
of my
заново,
ideas
но
for
не
the
будем терять
sequel.
локацию. Давайте пока еще походим, что-то есть, посмотрим. Так, ну ладно. Кстати, вверху что-то еще есть, дать посмотрим. Если только там барьеров нет никаких. А, нет, как раз барьер. А что если пройти на самый верх туда? Давайте глянем тоже. Хотя... А, тут выбора нет. Ладно, погнали на выход. Я тут вроде где-то видел выход был. Уж по идее мы все глянули. Так, вот вроде бы выход. Так, ну что ж, что у нас будет?
All
Сейчас
right.
посмотрим.
Have you seen everything you wanted to? Ready to move on now?
Не, классно, что сделали такую локацию, мне она очень понравилась. Чё- Так, что у нас еще?
So, Stanley, what do you think? Do you like all of the new
Да,
features?
довольно-таки
Yes, I know it's not
прикольно.
exactly clear yet how exactly these features will come together as one single coherent video game, but I can feel it in my soul. It's going to work. There's definitely a good game in there
Так,
somewhere.
тут...
Say, let's do an experiment. I'll arrange these new features together and we'll see whether or not it coheres into a meaningful gameplay experience. Okay. Are you ready?
Угу.
Here it is. I give you the Stanley Parable 2. I mean, there's potential here, right? It's sort of... Okay, never mind. Hold on. Let me do a different arrangement. Okay, yes, this is much better. I feel good about this. Here we go. Version 2. Who am I kidding, Stanley? This isn't a coherent video game at all. It's a lot of gags. And I do very much enjoy creating gags, but they don't add up to anything. I wanted more than anything to create a sequel that would capture all the magic of the first game. I wanted fans to love it. No matter how good these gags are, they won't stand on their own. They would need the structure and the gameplay of the original. Wait, maybe that's it. I can take the original Stanley Parable and simply, well, insert a few of my new features into it.
Ну-ка.
Tastefully, of course. With respect. With care for the vision and integrity of the original game. Would it possibly work? I suppose it could. But it would need a really, really tremendous title screen. A title screen that says with bold and uncompromising conviction, "This is the Stanley Parable 2. Let me see if I can whip something up. All right, perfect. Go ahead. Take a look.
Чего? Фига себе. Так, давайте начать игру. Тут, наверное, теперь все изменилось, получается. И начало в том числе игры.
This is the story of a man named Stanley. Stanley worked for a company in a big building
Опа,
where he
появились
was
шарики.
employee number 427. Employee number 427's job was simple. He sat at his desk in room 427 and he pushed buttons on a keyboard. Orders came to him through a monitor on his desk, telling him what buttons to push, how long to push them, and in what order. This is what employee 427 did every day of every month of every year. And although others might have considered it soul-rending, Stanley relished every moment that the orders came in, as though he had been made exactly for this job. And Stanley was happy. And then one day, something very peculiar happened. Something that would forever change Stanley. Something he would never quite forget. He had been at his desk for nearly an hour when he realized that not one single order had arrived on the monitor for him to follow. No one had showed up to give him instructions, call a meeting, or even say hi. Never in all his years at the company had this happened, this complete isolation. Something was very clearly wrong. Shocked, frozen solid, Stanley found himself unable to move for the longest time. But as he came to his wits and regained his senses, he got up from his desk and stepped out of his office.
Так, появились все
All
шарики.
of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean?
Что бы еще
Stanley decided to
изменилось?
go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Появилось
Stanley
ведро
picked up the
спокойствия.
bucket.
Так, контента нового теперь нет. Походу он начался как раз. Так, а тут у нас сейчас первый выбор.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest and entered the door on his left.
Давайте пока пойдем налево.
Still, no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's warmth and comfort now more than ever. Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. Oh, Stanley, can you feel it? The broom closet. It wants the bucket. You can feel that, can't you? The aura of
Неужто?
jealousy. It's as clear as day. This broom closet believes it deserves the bucket. I can really feel it now. It's a bucket. It belongs in a broom closet.
Наконец-то, теперь тут есть сюжетный поворот.
It's supposed to go with the other cleaning supplies. Good for you, Stanley. Don't give in. Don't hand over the bucket. I know how hard it must be, given the pressure that the broom closet is putting on your shoulders right now, but you have to be strong. This is your bucket. This is your companion and lifelong friend. You can't hand it over. Oh no. We're getting into name-calling now, it seems. Is this how low the broom closet has sunk, that it has to resort to this stream of petty insults simply in order to get you to hand over the bucket? Stanley, I never liked this broom closet for a variety of reasons, but even this is worse than I had imagined. And wait, now the broom closet has the gall to imply that you and the bucket are not truly deep and lasting friends? That your relationship is purely superficial and convenient? That your life is so banal and meaningless that you'd feel the same sort of kinship towards any inanimate object which happened to lay in your path in an even partially enticing manner? Well, I never. Go on, Stanley. Lay into it. Really tell the broom closet off for its demeaning comments. Expand on the wide variety of experiences you and the bucket have shared together. Go through each of them point by point. Share your journal entries detailing the rich emotional landscape of your feelings for the bucket as they have changed and evolved over the years. Let him have it.
Так, ну ничего особо мы тут сделать не можем, походу, пока что. Либо тут, наверное, надо будет надолго оставаться, только
Okay,
единственное...
I've got you something which I think will help settle this debate once and for all. Here we go. There.
Оп,
Now it's settled. No more debate, no more
Нормально.
discussion. Take a hike, broom closet, with all your meandering philosophical diatribes about the nature of cleaning supplies and their relationship to broom closets in the natural order of things.
блин, ладно. Так, давайте пойдем вниз.
Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs
Что-то я
to the
что-то уже
boss's
и
office.
не заходил вроде сюда в прошлый раз.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was
О,
crazy.
начинается
And
этот коридор.
something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy.
Помните
He
серию
looked
в
down at the
Симпсонах,
bucket in his
где
arms. Am I
еще
crazy?
у Неда
He asked
Фландерса
the
дом
bucket.
построили,
The
который
bucket
ураган
returned his
снес?
gaze, but said
И
nothing
построили
more.
дом, который еще сужался,
That's
когда у него
strange,
проходил.
Stanley
Вот
thought. Usually the
очень
bucket is a
напоминает.
source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort.
Да.
And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from
А
this.
где ведро?
Who knows what sorts of bizarre
Ладно.
hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him. Stanley! Stanley, it's me, the bucket. Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing by one bucket after the next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket. Come to me, Stanley. Find me. He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly,
Черт, эти
he was
ведра
dead in his
появились.
tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Нормально, нормально. Тут раскрутил историю с ведром.
This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other.
Чё?
She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course, he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how
Жесть, он
everything is
раскрутил тут,
predetermined
блин.
and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game.
Блин, а
If
раньше
all
точно,
had
типа, с ней
been
другая
prevented, if
концовка была
only
без
he'd
ведра.
taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Опа. Пространство начало ломаться. Теперь он с целым
Stanley lifted the bucket
Погнали
into
с
his
ведром.
arms, and a wave of Stanley clutched the
Так,
bucket
погнали
tightly to his chest
влево.
and entered the door on his
Может
left.
повторить путь, но я думаю, он ничего не изменит. Это то же самое будет.
Still no one was here. Stanley needed the bucket's
Хотя,
warmth and
знаю эту
comfort
игру,
now
можно
more
хоть
than
чего
ever.
ждать.
Perhaps his boss's office was where he'd find answers. All right, I've got a second sticker back here, and I'm going to snap it on as well because I think it's appropriate. You see, I feel that it works because the sticker is also a bucket. That way, if you're ever unsure whether the thing you're holding is a bucket or not, you can look down at this sticker and say to yourself, ah, it's a bucket. There really is a wide variety of applications for this sticker.
Так, ну ясно. Блин, уже 2 наклейки зато на
You
ведре
know
есть.
what? I could take coming to a staircase, Stanley and the
Так, а
bucket
давайте
walked
вниз пойдем
upstairs
опять.
to the boss's
Может, там
office.
можно быть как-то по-другому поступить.
But Stanley just couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss, admitting he had left his post during work hours. He might be fired for that. And in such a competitive economy, why had he taken that risk? All because he believed everyone had vanished? His boss would think he was crazy. And then something occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end up with someone else's bucket? This is all terribly wrong. Surely no good would come from
Так,
this.
я понял. Ну,
Who
значит,
knows
сцена
what
просто будет
sorts of
повторяться,
bizarre
видимо.
hallucinations Stanley might experience without the psychologically grounding presence of his bucket. And indeed, now he noticed the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me! The bucket!
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room,
О,
passing
пошло
by
это
one
ведровое
bucket after the
безумие.
next. None of them were his. None of them were his special bucket.
Come to me, Stanley! Find me!
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his old friend. It was the only way to truly restore his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful. Stanley doubled over in agony and blacked out.
Так, ну ясно, история повторилась. Ничего не изменилось. Тогда пойдем в другую
This is the
сторону.
story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of
Ну да,
comfort
это
and
я уже
security,
видел.
and walked to her place of work.
Да,
But
окей.
on this particular day,
Зря я пошел
her
тут по
walk was
второму разу.
interrupted by the
Я думал,
body
просто
of a
что-то,
man
может быть,
who had
изменится.
stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Так, отлично. Ладно, пойдемте сейчас по-другому будем проходить, пытаться. Вот, сейчас будем
How
использовать
long
этот
was I
метод.
sitting there? Stanley wondered to himself. Minutes? Days? Centuries? Did something crucial happen? The confusion and the chaos all seemed to melt away as Stanley embraced the bucket.
Кстати, интересно, а доделали теперь
Stanley
ту
clutched the
самую
bucket
локацию?
tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
Ну-ка.
But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? No, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the
Да,
meeting
там,
room.
походу, что-то изменили. Как я понимаю.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift. Good.
Said the bucket.
Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do.
Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact. He was firmly
Кстати,
convinced that the bucket had spoken to him.
тут
and
реально,
he
походу, есть
unthinkingly
коллекционные
did
эти
whatever
фигурки.
the bucket asked.
Там есть, потому что одна надо потом забрать, попробовать. Так, внимание, опасность везде.
No, stop. Look there on the wall. You see, there's a sign right there. It says, no buckets past this point. Stanley, how could you think it was okay to bring the bucket here? Unless, what if the problem is that you actually don't know what is a bucket and what isn't a bucket? I suppose that would explain a lot about your behavior up to this point. Which, if that's true, well, my goodness, I think we have to do something about it. This misunderstanding could have dire consequences on the entire rest of the game if not addressed quickly and properly. So much of the impact of the story is dependent on your understanding of what is and isn't a bucket. Please, step in here for a moment.
Ну ладно, все-таки у нас выбора сейчас нет, поэтому пойдемте, куда он сказал. Ну-ка.
Now then, I'm going to run you through some
Черт
test
побери.
scenarios, and you'll
Так,
tell me
ну-ка.
whether or not the thing I'm showing you is a bucket. Simple enough, right? This should tell us everything we'll ever need to know about what is or is not a bucket.
Короче, тест на ведро. Есть оно или нет. Так, поехали.
Item
Ведро.
one. Is this a bucket?
А ну-ка, если сейчас, кстати, нет.
Correct. It is a hologram of a bucket, not an actual bucket.
Да? Серьезно? Так, ладно. Если мы...
Item 2. Is this a bucket?
Нет.
Correct. It is a 3D
Да ну
printed
нафиг, в
recreation of a
смысле?
bucket, not an actual
Так,
bucket.
хорошо. А если я в третий раз фигану?
Item 3. Is this a bucket? Incorrect.
Ура!
This is a bucket. Item 4. Is this a bucket?
Да.
Are you hallucinating? This is a tractor. It's an enormous machine that tills the earth. I thought this was a gimmick. How on earth did you manage to screw it up? Absolutely incredible. Let's just move on to the next one. Is this a bucket?
Да, абсолютно, это ведро.
Correct.
Чего?
Is this a bucket?
Да ну его нафиг.
Item 6. Is this a bucket?
Блин, это трудный вопрос. Наверное, это ведро, хотя...
Trick question. Both.
А,
Gotcha.
понятно, да и нет. Блин, классно не угадали логику, по которой будет игрок идти.
Item. Wait, hold on. I can't find the next one. Let me see. It should be around here somewhere.
Нет.
Yes. Thank you. There's nothing here. Of course it isn't a bucket. We both know full well that nothing isn't a bucket. Wait, when I say nothing isn't a bucket, that makes it sound like I'm saying everything is a bucket, which of course is not true. Unless, is that what you think? Answer me straight, Stanley. Are you trying to tell me that you believe everything is a bucket?
Да, все есть ведро.
You know what? I'm too confused to even sort it out. I've lost all sense of perspective. What is a bucket? What isn't a bucket? Mere moments ago I could answer these questions with confidence. And yet now I'm somewhat adrift.
Ну-ка.
Do any of us know what a bucket is? Am I a bucket? Stanley, I
Да,
can't keep
он
doing
ведро.
this. I'm losing myself, and myself was all I ever had to begin with. I'm afraid the bucket is threatening to tear our relationship apart. I can't have that. I'm sorry. But I'm going to erase all buckets from the
Нет.
diary.
Черт.
Okay, here we go.
Блин, ну
What
только не
happened?
ведро.
Is everything gone? Why did everything disappear? Wait, was everything a bucket? Every single thing in the game was a bucket. Oh my God, I had no idea. How could... Except me. I'm not a bucket after all. And you, Stanley, you're still here. You're not a bucket either. Oh, this is wonderful news. We're not buckets. Yes, I actually feel much more at ease right now. It's delightful to get some clarity on that issue, but it doesn't change the fact that we haven't got a game. So, tell you what, I'll reset everything and we'll put back all of the buckets, okay? And we'll know that it's all a bucket. But if you run into anyone else, maybe don't mention that. Who knows what that information might do to a person? All right, here we go.
Нормально так. Мне, кстати, тоже вот эта концовка, так сказать, развязка событий мне тоже понравилась. Прикольно довольно-таки. Ладно, идем дальше.
The meeting room. Yes, that's where everyone would be. Stanley just needed to get to the meeting room. Warmth spread through Stanley's arms. With the bucket in his arms again, he was home.
Так.
Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to
Погнали
his
опять
chest. This
вправо.
was not the correct
Там что там
way to the
собрать
meeting room.
ту
But Stanley had
коллекционную
felt the
фигурку,
bucket calling
которую
to
там
him,
увидел.
telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Кстати, мы так и не выбрали этот путь, надо его потом выбрать.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there. Go to the cargo lift.
You found one of them. One of the miniature Stanley figurines.
Да,
Remember,
вторую нашли.
no reward for collecting all of these, only the intrinsic pleasure of a job well done. You can't buy that sort of happiness, Stanley.
Ну, кстати,
God knows I
вот
tried.
это неплохой
So,
подход к тому,
I implore
что
you to
за
savor
сбор таких
each and
мини-фигурок
every
ты ничего не
moment you come
получаешь,
across
потому
one of
что
these
как бы ты
beautiful
собираешь чисто из
figurines.
удовольствия, то есть такого чисто эстетического. А то в игре порой прям говорят, что вот, надо прям находить. Блин, это, наверное, разобьют сейчас. Кстати, а ну-ка, просто интересно.
But But Stanley feared that any path he walked
Понятно.
might
Тут можно
lead
было
to the
помереть.
separation of himself and the bucket, his dearest friend. So he threw himself to his death, that they might die in one another's arms. How deeply touching.
Так, окей.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Stanley picked up the bucket and smiled. He'd never be alone again, not truly alone, not with the bucket around. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley
Так,
had
погнали
felt the
теперь в ту
bucket calling to
канализацию,
him,
точнее
telling him
вентиляцию.
that the
Которую
employee
же всё
lounge
видел.
was simply the place to be.
Надо ее
And
тоже
here it
проверить.
was. Had the bucket turned
Что
out to
там
be
будет?
correct? Was no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
No,
Said the bucket.
don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Go there.
Оп. Где мы? Хм.
Okay, this is day number 295. Tape number... I don't even know. I've lost track. Nothing feels real anymore. The longer I study this bucket, the less sense anything makes. The sheer euphoria I feel every time I pick it up. No matter how many times I've done it, it's always the same feeling. And the emptiness in my chest when I set it down. It doesn't make sense. There's no explanation for it.
Да не, кажется, чел просто сошел с ума.
Still haven't figured out why I see the world so differently when this bucket is in my arms. Why everything feels so... What do I do with this treasure? I can monetize it. Yes. It's unthinkable the amounts of money people will pay for even just an hour with the bucket. This is my golden ticket. But I have to be careful, because as soon as this gets out, there's going to be a target on my back. Even now, I don't know who might be trying to get... What's that? Who's there?
Что там, существо какое-то съело, походу. И это все?
Wait, Stanley thought to himself. Am I sure that the orders stopped coming in? How is that possible? The good old bucket. Just Stanley and the bucket. Off on another thrilling adventure together.
Да, блин, мы уже каждый раз этим пидором уже берем реально. Ладно. Так, погнали типа по прямой прям проедем. Интересно, что будет.
Telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Well, no, never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back to the meeting room.
Так, попробуем теперь просто проехать вперед.
Don't go to the meeting room. Go somewhere else. The cargo lift, yes. Good, said the bucket. Now ride the lift all the way to the top. There's something up there I need you to do. Stanley did not question why or how this bucket was speaking to him. It should have alarmed him, of course, because buckets can't talk. But Stanley chose not to think about this obvious fact.
He was firmly convinced that the bucket had spoken to him, and he unthinkingly did whatever the bucket asked.
Так, и...
In here, said the bucket. Go into this dark room over here. Stanley once again obeyed blindly.
Так, возможно, не лучшая идея, но...
Now pick up the phone.
This is the sad story of a man named Stanley and his bucket. Once upon a time, I gave Stanley a bucket because I thought he was lonely and could use a friend. And then, very distressingly, he began to believe the bucket could speak to him.
Так, ну-ка.
The Stanley Parable Reassurance Bucket was merely meant to provide the comforting glow of companionship. It doesn't literally talk and give you orders. Whatever Stanley is hearing the bucket say to him is just in his head. Lately, I've been concerned about him. Wouldn't you be concerned as well? To see him delusional like this, obsessing over an inanimate metal object?
Звучит как какая-то, не знаю, социальная реклама.
I don't know if he'll listen to me.
Так, где ведро-то теперь? А, вот.
Oh, I'll try anyway. Stanley, can you hear me? Listen to me. It's just a bucket. It can't think, it can't talk. All it will ever truly do for you is effectively transfer a liquid from one location to a different location. That's it. It doesn't do anything else. You see, he's not listening. He's still taking orders from the bucket. You know, once upon a time it was me he took orders from. Me he trusted and listened to. Now all he cares about is his awful bucket. This stupid hunk of metal.
Что-то я не могу найти теперь ведро. Где оно? А, вот оно.
It's sad, but I suppose he doesn't need me anymore. From now on, he's just going to cling to this bucket, this cold, empty bucket, this sort of shiny bucket. Well, I'll give it this. The bucket does have a nice shine to it. Yes, I suppose on closer inspection that it doesn't quite look like your average hardware store bucket. It's just a little more, what am I trying to say? Sturdier, more capable of transporting liquid. Like it would be better at moving an amount of water from one room to another.
Чему же они сейчас всю историю доведут-то с ведром?
Oh my God, what am I saying? Better at carrying water from room to room. It's a bucket. It's literally just a bucket. Why do I feel some need to point out the ways in which it's so much more than just a regular bucket?
Так, пойти на работу. Точнее, домой.
I'm having feelings for the bucket. Oh, no. What's going on? Why do I want to be with the bucket? Hear what the bucket has to say. Do anything it asks. What's wrong with me? I don't understand. Perhaps if I had the bucket, this would be less confusing.
Так, ну-ка.
Yes, the bucket could tell me what to do in this troublesome situation. Stanley, give me the bucket. Give it to me. Give me the bucket, Stanley. I need it. Give it to me now. Give it or I'll...
Все, да? Эх, снова на
All of
работу.
his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Да, походу, наверное, этот митинг-рум в любом случае.
The bucket asked. Stanley just smiled. Anywhere they went together would be... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his... This was not the correct way to the meeting room. But Stanley had felt the bucket calling to him, telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be.
Так,
And
и
here
теперь
it
повернем
was.
налево.
Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was no, Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Хотя, давайте пойдем на лифте сначала.
Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your friends and I are concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around everywhere. The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel content. We're the ones that matter, Stanley. Classic characters from the first game, like the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet. Because that's what fans want from a sequel. They want more of their favorite jokes, not this bucket that they've never seen before. Yes, I know I'm the one who gave you the bucket, but you're spending too much time with it. Don't you want another story involving the Adventure Line? We could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what the fans want. Let's do it. Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to
Если
next?
помню, в первой
and
части
it
был
played some
какой-то
silly
подобный
music as
ивент.
well.
Точнее, не ивент, а тоже путь прохождения. Что шел по этой линии. Так.
Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also, Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
Yes, it's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something. Don't you get it, Stanley? We need to get rid of the bucket. That's why I'm very proud to introduce a brand new character. This is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore.
Не уверен, не уверен. Я уже к ведру привык.
Was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed out
Как главный
character with
герой.
so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree?
Но походу тут выходов нету.
Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Да ну
Now
неужто
listen
это?
to me. It's crucial that you give it the bucket. I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your
А
bucket.
ну-ка.
Destroying buckets is all it knows.
Так.
That is its singular personality trait. Sure, I can hear you saying, how does a character with only one personality trait
Так,
deserve
ну-ка.
to join the pantheon
Опять
of
сейчас
the
какая-то
loved
бред
Stanley
начнется.
Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The Broom Closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer merchandise the fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset now. You'll have to hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want.
Ладно, можешь
Hurry
кинуть
and-
ведро. Хотя уж поздно.
The Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Ну-ка. И все. Тишина. Ну я не знаю, я просто не хотел уничтожать ведро абсолютно как-то. Опа. Что-то вообще все сменилось.
All of his co-workers, a good bucket, a strong bucket, a humble bucket, a committed bucket, a bucket of culture and distinction. Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chest. And this was not the direct way to the meeting
Ну
room.
теперь мы дойдем до
But Stanley
переговорной,
had
как
felt
бы
the
то ни
bucket
было.
calling to him,
Я уж не
telling
вижу
him
смысла
that
куда
the
дальше идти.
employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was this no? Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
А, кстати, подсказки, получается, везде можно найти. Так, ну хорошо, я пытаюсь их запомнить.
Stanley, we must move on from this broom closet, simply because I have no remaining stickers. If I did, you can guarantee we'd be in here for hours. But alas, no stickers.
Ну ладно.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office. Another miniature Stanley figurine. This, you know, there really must be a snappier name for these things. What about mini stands? Stanley figs? Or what about Stanlerines? Yes, I think I like
Блин,
that.
знаете, давайте за стрим,
Another
наверное, найдем остальные
Stanlerine under your belt.
статуэтки по возможности. Ну вот, прикольно. Почему бы и нет? Интересно, ли теперь куда-то едет? Хотя, подозреваю, что нет. Да. Да, никуда он не приехал. Все так же стоит на месте. Так, ладно, зайдем сюда теперь.
Stepping into his manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dumpster fire if not for the soothing presence of the bucket. Even now, in his darkest of hours, did the bucket's warmth and guiding light pierce the dark clouds of confusion and chaos. It would be with him always. The bucket would, and he knew it. The two of them were inseparable. At this point, Stanley was so absorbed in the tender spiritual connection, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck.
Код я помню.
Was it the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Так, поехали вниз. Ну, если там-то теперь что-нибудь изменится, тем более мы, кстати, там столько вещей не проверяли еще. Вот. Ну, кстати, я думаю, мы уже близко к концовке игры. Тут, конечно, прям такой, прям какой-то объективной полной концовки, наверное, нету, но... Думаю, за этот стрим мы спокойно пройдем большинство вещей. Так.
The bucket is here for you, Stanley. Everything will be fine. Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Так, ну мы уже бежали, там особо ничего интересного не было. Погнали сюда. Хотя потом как-нибудь проверить можно. Потом пошествовать.
What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Сейчас, секунду. Так, ладно, погнали дальше.
The monitors jumped to life, and Stanley nearly
Сейчас вам
dropped the
тут
bucket in
что-нибудь
shock.
нового.
Everyone in the office was being videotaped, monitored like guinea pigs. The bucket had never seen anything like this, and it very nearly burst into tears as Stanley cradled it gently, reassuring it that everything would be fine. Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control. Never! He squeezed.
Блин, потихоньку быстренько уходит на ведро, нежели на героя.
At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket.
Подъехали.
But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink in,
Сомневаюсь, что что-то можно
Stanley
сделать,
decided that this machinery
чтобы
would
что-то
never again
активировалось.
exert
Я
its
уж не помню
terrible
еще.
power over
Хотя, возможно, я
another human
ошибаюсь.
life. For he and the bucket would dismantle the controls for good. Two best friends, Stanley and the bucket, up against the world. They high-fived in a really cool way, and the bucket made a sassy comment about taking down the system.
А давайте включим.
But at the last second, the bucket jumped in and pressed the button to turn on the controls. Stanley gasped in horror. Had this been the bucket's plan all along? To take over the machine and claim the power for itself? How could the bucket have betrayed him like this? Stanley was prepared to throw the bucket away in disgust when suddenly an image appeared upon the enormous screen. Birds. Silly, silly birds. The control buttons became active again. Stanley flipped through one video of silly birds after another, and then it dawned on him. This wasn't a mind
Что-то
control
такого не припомню,
facility
вроде
at
там
all.
было что-то другое
It
до
was a
этого.
facility for
Прикольно.
monitoring and surveilling silly
Классно в целом
birds
вообще они
all
сделали
over
этот
the world.
вторую часть, получается, как
The
Stanley
mind
Parable.
controls were only a facade
Это не просто,
to
по сути,
disguise its true
какая-то
intent.
Ultimate Edition.
At the
А прям реально,
bucket
походу, вторая часть полноценная.
Stanley marveled at the metal
Судя из того,
genius
что
in
я
his
вижу в игре.
hands, the one who had pointed him towards this incredible discovery. Stanley and the bucket never found freedom because they spent the rest of their lives here in this place, flipping through live streams of the silliest
Серьезно?
birds imaginable. Of all the possible paths his life could have taken, this one was surely the best. And Stanley was happy.
Так, надо бы еще раз проверить ту кнопку.
All of his coworkers were gone.
И надо потом, после этого, я бы, знаете, я бы попробовал сжечь ведро. Прям, реально. Может, почему бы и нет? Просто так, ради интереса посмотреть, что из этого выйдет. Потому что в целом я уже других выборов и не припомню. Которые я бы еще мог бы так попробовать. Кстати, что там? Так. Рядом, получается, с местом огня. Где-то между красным и синим. Что где-то рядом с, получается, лестницей. Но я хз, о чем речь конкретно, ладно. Ага, я понял, это я уже читал. Ну, вообще не читал, а то, что это уже... Так, ладно. Погнали наверх. Так, код там вроде бы был 2845, да. 28, да, 45.
Stanley was once again stunned to discover not an indication of any human life. Crushed by the weight of this revelation, Stanley may have broken down into an emotional dump, but Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Ну-ка. Кстати, с другой стороны, мы не пробовали побег. Можно его тоже использовать перед тем, как пойдем сжигать ведро. Блин,
The
синдром бы
lights
надо,
rose.
чтобы не
What an
забыться, где оно.
enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley and the bucket both wondered to themselves.
Так, идем дальше. Так, ну это мы уже все видели. Жалко, что пропускать, конечно, нельзя. Ну ладно, что поделать. Порой и вправду, тут когда вот уже проходишь последние, кажется, концовки, то и вправду порой не хватает прям кнопки пропуска реплик, потому что они уже были. Но да ладно, отчасти это по сути игра. Ну, часть важной игры.
Was the bucket under the mind control facility's influence as well? Had the bucket been told to do things it didn't wish to do? What kinds of things does a bucket want to do or not want to do in the first place? These questions raced furiously in Stanley's feeble mind. No! He screamed into the bucket. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control, never! He squeezed the bucket tighter. His one friend in the entire world. At this point, he could trust no one except for the bucket. But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions, happy or sad or content. Walking, eating, working, all of it monitored and commanded from this very place. And as the cold reality of his past began to sink
Так,
in,
давайте дадим
Stanley decided
выглядеть
that
со
this
всей этой
machinery
системе.
would never again...
Кстати, не громко или сейчас игра, интересно? По звуку надо потом
Stanley and the
послушать.
bucket waited in
Да
blackness.
ладно. Так.
Was it over?
Ну что все закончилось.
Yes, they had done it. Stanley and the bucket had defeated their
Интересно, а
greatest and
вернуться...
darkest enemy, freed themselves from the tyrannical grip of the evil mind control machine. Freedom was now mere moments away. Excitedly, the two of them began to discuss the kind of life they wanted to live once they stepped through this
Да,
massive
назад там
door.
никак не уйдешь.
The bucket wanted to learn to
То есть
roller
только
skate.
один проход
Stanley
вперед.
wanted to sneeze in every country on
Ладно,
earth.
погнали вперед.
Both of them wanted to begin watching a movie, any movie, but then stop it halfway through and begin watching it in reverse from the end. True, it was a simple life they envisioned, but it was one they'd lived together, with one another to lean on, to trust, to support.
Опа.
What? Wait. What was happening? Why had the door stopped? Was Stanley and the bucket not about to be freed? An unbearable silence filled the room, lingering in uncertainty, until finally the truth hit Stanley square in the face. This building did not want the bucket to leave. Even the facility itself recognized the incredible calming presence of the bucket, needed the soothing warmth of the bucket, would go to any lengths not to part with the bucket. No, no, no. Stanley can't leave this place. Not while he has such a precious bucket in his arms. Not while this building has anything to say about it.
Я думал, что
Stanley
будет.
realized he would never again leave this very room. But at least he has the bucket. To be trapped eternally in darkness isn't really so bad, Stanley thought to himself. As long as I have my bucket with me, right? I'll be okay, won't I? Stanley gulped. Very soon now, he was about to find out.
Вот так вот. Вот такая вот концовочка. Ладно, нам уже осталось считанные концовки, несколько штук и все, по идее. Что написано? Today. Да, там ничего более. Ладно.
The bucket made Stanley want to be a better man and a better co-worker. In time, perhaps, he would become both of... Stanley clutched the bucket tightly to his chin. This was not the correct way to the meeting room, but Stanley had felt the bucket calling
Так,
to him,
теперь можно
telling
попробовать
him that the
сбежать.
employee lounge was simply the place to
И
be.
получается,
And here it was. Had the bucket
и
turned
можно
out to be
попробовать
correct? Was this
уничтожить ведро.
Never mind. The bucket was wrong. Stanley took the door on his left to go back, and so the two of them detoured through the maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door.
Хотя почему нам сейчас еще раз не поглянуть? Может, там что-то пропустил? Так.
Coming to a staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
А, ну внизу-то мы были. Наверху мы уже знаем. Ладно, погнали-то по нижнему, просто чтобы проскипать, я не туда пошел, по
Stanley just
сути.
couldn't do it. He considered the possibility of facing his boss,
Ну, блин, что
admitting he
поделать,
had
ладно.
left his post during work hours.
Так,
Might have
получается, у нас две
there.
концовки
And in such a
осталось.
competitive
Либо
economy, why
убежать,
had he taken that
пытаться,
risk?
где там опять
All
будет
because he
уничтожение
believed
нас.
everyone had vanished.
Либо
His boss
попытаться
would think he was
уничтожить ведро.
crazy. And then
Ну, подумаем,
something
посмотрим.
occurred to Stanley. Maybe, he thought to himself, maybe I am crazy. He looked down at the bucket in his arms. Am I crazy? He asked the bucket. The bucket returned his gaze, but said nothing at all. That's strange, Stanley thought. Usually the bucket is a source of guidance and wisdom for me in difficult times such as these. He held the bucket close, yet felt none of its familiar reassurance and comfort. And that's when Stanley realized, this isn't my bucket. It's just a normal, everyday bucket. Someone else's bucket, perhaps. How did I end
Не,
up
в
with
целом
someone
классно,
else's
что они
bucket?
придумали эту
This
идею
is
с
terribly
ведром,
wrong.
который как
Surely
раз
no
заполняла
good
сюжетные
confidence.
пробелы,
Who knows what sorts
так
of
называемые,
bizarre
хотя это и не
hallucinations
назовешь даже
Stanley might
пробелами.
experience
Вот.
without the
Прикольно,
psychologically
прикольно, мне
grounding
нравится.
presence of his bucket. And indeed,
Так.
now he noticed that the rooms were repeating, which was, of course, very odd. And now he felt himself floating off the ground. Oh, gracious, he exclaimed. Without my bucket, I've gone truly mad. Where is it? I must find it. Far off in the distance now, he heard it, calling to him.
Stanley! Stanley, it's me! The bucket!
Could it truly be? He rushed forward from room to room, passing
Блин, кстати,
by one
почему-то,
bucket
когда
after
это
the
ведро
next.
орет, мне почему-то
None of
напоминает
them were
этот
his.
голос
None of
Дэвида
them were his
Линча
special
оригинальный. Ну, в
bucket.
плане,
Come to
его
me,
реальный живой
Stanley.
голос.
Find me.
He had to find the bucket. He had to return to his
Сказать,
old
что
friend.
такие
It was
ассоциации,
the only way to
что-то
truly
похоже как
restore
будто.
his sanity. And then suddenly, he froze dead in his tracks. He knew where the voice of the bucket had been coming from. The real bucket was inside of him all along. It was incredibly painful.
Да,
Stanley
это было
doubled over
ужасно
loudly
больно.
and blacked out. This is the story of a woman named Mariella. Mariella woke up on a day like any other. She arose, got dressed, picked up her bucket of comfort and security, and walked to her place of work. But on this particular day, her walk was interrupted by the body of a man who had stumbled through town, talking and screaming to himself, and then collapsed dead on the sidewalk. Right away, she knew what the problem was. This man had no bucket. Of course he'd gone mad, ranting and raving about a narrator describing all of his actions and how everything is predetermined and free will is an illusion and it's all just a video game. It could all have been prevented if only he'd taken his bucket with him. Perhaps he didn't even realize he'd forgotten his bucket at home in the first place. How cruel the world can be, Mariella thought, and she hugged her own bucket even tighter. But of course, she had no time for this. There were a myriad of confusing problems she would soon have to confront at work, for which her bucket would provide absolute guidance and total clarity on everything. Heck yes, she thought to herself, my life kicks ass. And she backflipped all the way to work.
Так, ну что ж. Погнали к последним двум
A soft
концовкам,
wind blew
получается.
outside and perhaps rain started. And if it did, it stopped shortly after. Not everyone is so
На
lucky
первом
to
сейчас
have a
пойдем
bucket,
к,
but
как я
Stanley
говорю
was
уже,
a
к
very
выходу.
fellow,
Где-то
very
надпись
lucky
Escape.
indeed.
А на втором я
Stanley
попытаюсь,
clutched the
так
bucket
сказать,
tightly to his chest. This was not the correct way to the meeting
попытаться
room.
полностью
Stanley had felt the bucket
уничтожить
calling to him,
ведро.
telling him that the employee lounge was simply the place to be. And here it was. Had the bucket turned out to be correct? Was it no? Never mind. The bucket was wrong.
Так, если что, повернули
Stanley took
налево
the door on his left to go back to the meeting
и
room.
отправились на лифт же, да? Да, вроде на лифт.
And so the two of them
Я уже
set
немного
off into the
забылся.
maintenance section and walked straight ahead to the opposite door. Oh, good Stanley. I'm glad you found your way here. I knew you'd find this place eventually. You see, your
Кстати, мы не
friends and I
заходили
are
в брум.
concerned for you, Stanley. We've come together here because we care about you very much. It's this bucket you're carrying around
А, я
everywhere.
понял.
The bucket isn't even from the original Stanley Parable. It's just sequel
Так.
content. We're the ones that matter,
А,
Stanley.
стоп, я,
Classic
получается...
characters from the first
А, хотя
game, like
ладно.
the Adventure Line and the Broom Closet.
Думаю,
Because
там мало
that's
чего бы
what
изменилось.
fans want from a sequel. They want more of their
Давайте
favorite
тогда,
jokes,
наверное, на этом
not this bucket
закругляться
that
на
they've never
сегодня.
seen before.
Давайте тогда это будет
Yes, I
последняя
know I'm the
концовка.
one who gave you the bucket,
Просто
but you're
уничтожим
spending
это
too
ведро,
much
с
time with
которого
it.
мы ходили всю
Don't
эту
you want
часть.
another story involving the
И
Adventure
возможно, что
Line? We
произойдет.
could make the Adventure Line go somewhere new. Yes, yes, that's what... Whee! Look at that wacky line. Who knows where it'll go off to next? Oh, and it played some silly music as well.
Так.
Now this is what the Stanley Parable is all about. Don't you remember all those great jokes from the original dialogue?
Also,
Кстати,
Stanley is addicted to drugs and hookers.
показалось, что дверь можно открыть.
It's as classic now as it was back then. Let's do it for the fans, Stanley. Let's give them more content exactly like this. But if we want to do that, you're going to have to give something up. Don't you
Так,
get
ну
it,
что
Stanley?
ж.
We need to get rid of the bucket.
Что,
That's
уничтожим
why
ведро
I'm very proud to introduce a
и
brand
покончим
new
со всем
character.
этим.
This is the Bucket Destroyer. I think it'll make a wonderful new addition to the rich lore of the Stanley Parable. True, it also was not in the original game, but it's such a well-fleshed-out character with so much personality that to me it already feels as though it's been part of the cast all along. Don't you agree? Can you guess what the Bucket Destroyer does? Surely you don't need me to spell it out for you. Go ahead now, Stanley. Say goodbye to the bucket, and then pop it into the machine when you're ready.
Я не понял. Я не могу его скинуть.
Now listen to me. It's crucial
Эй,
that you
эй.
get the bucket.
Я...
I don't know what the Bucket Destroyer will do if it can't destroy your bucket. Destroying buckets is all it knows. That is its singular personality
Эй,
trait.
я не могу его
Sure,
скинуть.
saying, how does a character with only one personality trait deserve to join the pantheon of
Вы
the
угораете.
Stanley Parable characters? Well, you see, if you were to really explore the Bucket Destroyer, you would see that its desire to crush buckets is so densely loaded with complexity and nuance that it's really like 10 personality traits. What other object in this game can you even say that about? The Broom Closet? Certainly not. I wonder what sort of Bucket Destroyer
как его
merchandise
скинуть-то я
the
готов.
fans will be clamoring for after this. Okay, the Bucket Destroyer is getting very upset.
Я ничего
Now you
сделать не
have to
могу.
hurry and feed it. We can't get back to the classic Stanley Parable characters like the Adventure Line or the Bucket Destroyer until you crush that damn bucket. Quickly now, the fans are waiting. Do it, the fans, Stanley. Give the fans what they want. Hurry and...
Да, как бы мы ни хотели, но... от этого ведра мы уже не избавимся.
The Bucket Destroyer, my prized creation. You had so much potential. We were going to do such marvelous things with you, tell such spellbinding stories about you. All of it squandered now. Goodbye, new friend. For the moment in time that you were here, you were magnificent.
Да. Не знаю, есть ли еще в игре какие-то новые концовки. Вероятно, есть, но... Я даже не знаю. О.
Hi, Stanley. Just wanted to leave you a message to let you know there's a few things I need you to pick up on your way home from work today. We need milk, cereal, dish soap, spaghetti, get a thing of sugar, some bread, and coffee beans, whichever ones you like. I'll give you a call if there's anything I forgot. Thanks, sweetie. See you tonight.
Мгм. Окей.
When Stanley came to a set of 2 open doors, he entered the door on his left. This was not the correct way to the meeting room.
Не
and
знаю.
Stanley knew it perfectly
Вот
well.
знаете, что-то сейчас так
Perhaps he wanted to
задумался,
stop by
что
the
типа,
employee lounge first,
куда нам
just
теперь-то
to
идти,
admire it.
собственно?
it was okay. But eager to get back to business, Stanley took the first open door on his left. Stanley was so bad at following directions, it's incredible he wasn't fired years ago. Look, Stanley, I think perhaps we've gotten off on the wrong
Знаете,
foot
а
here.
пойдемте туда опять.
I'm not your enemy, really, I'm not. I realize that investing your trust in someone else can be difficult, but the fact is that the story has been about nothing but you all this time. There's someone you've been neglecting. What? Really? I was in the middle of something. Do you have zero consideration for others? Are you that convinced that I want something bad to happen to
Посмотрим,
you?
что тут
Why,
будет, потому
I
что
don't know how to convince you of this, but I really do want
с
to
ядром мы
help
не
you,
могли сюда
to show
зайти.
you something
Понимаем же.
beautiful. Look, let me prove it.
Кстати.
Let me prove that I'm on your side.
Оп.
Okay, I'm going back to the name
Yes.
of these little Stanley figurines, and now I'm torn between Stanleys and Figlies.
Nice.
What do you think, Stanley? What name better encapsulates the intrinsic sense of happiness that you get from seeing a small number in the corner of your screen go up by 1? Let me sit on it. I'm sure it will come to me.
Так. Ну что ж, это мы нашли. Так. Ну-ка.
Now listen carefully, this is important. Stanley walked
Ну,
through
кстати,
the
не
red
заходили
door.
в красную дверь. Почему бы не зайти?
Oh, thank God you are willing to listen to me. Do you see that I really have wanted you to be happy all this time? The problem is all these choices. The two of us always trying to get somewhere that isn't here. Running and running and running, just the way you're doing right now. Don't you see that it's killing us, Stanley? I wanted to stop. We would both be so much happier if we just stopped. And I think I have a solution. Here, let me show you. What do we want? What are we looking for? Here. Yes. Oh, it's beautiful, isn't it? If we just stay right here, right in this moment with this place, Stanley, I think I feel happy. I actually feel happy.
Либо можно спуститься сюда.
No, wait. Where are you going? Oh no. Stay away from those stairs. If you hurt yourself, if you die, the game will reset. We'll lose all of this. Please, no, Stanley, let me stay here. Don't take this from me. Please, Stanley, think about what you're doing.
Да ладно, что терять? Погнали.
Oh, thank God you lived. You had me worried there for a moment. Now, can we please get back to the other room? There. See? This is what you want. This is where we can both be happy. We really can. If we stop moving, we just have to stop moving.
Да, и при том даже без ведра. Знаете, я думаю, хотя, не знаю, не знаю. Я вот пока что перебираю в голове варианты, куда бы могли бы еще пойти бы, чтобы забрать, так сказать, все статуэтки. Ладно. Хотя... Ну, я запомню это место. Если что, было прикольно даже стрим закончить сегодня. Я думаю.
Stanley, go back. There's nothing good that can come from this.
Погнали еще раз прыгнем с этой лестницы. Кстати, тут нет случая. Кстати, вот я помню, там говорилось про лестницу. Может быть, имеется в виду лестница, которая еще есть в комнате с... ну, рядом с комнатой директора, может быть, да? Ладно, прыгаем.
Stanley, let's go back to the other room. Can you do that for me?
Ой. Что-то это у
My
нас
God,
попало.
is this really how
Так.
much you dislike my game? That you'll throw yourself from this platform over and over to be rid of
Да в
it?
целом уже
You are
готово.
literally willing to kill yourself to keep me from being happy. Am I reading the situation correctly? Or maybe you're just getting a kick out of it. I don't know anymore. I just wanted us to get along. But I guess that was too much to ask. It looks like you wanted to make a choice after all. Well, this one is yours.
Так, и в последний раз это получается. It's...
Is it over? It's going to restart, isn't it? I'm going back.
Какая-то немножко депрессивная концовка в конце, ну ладно. Так. Опять тот же телефон.
Good morning. Thank you for
Да,
contacting the
та
Future
же самая.
Happiness Foundation.
Так, ладно, давайте возьмем
It takes a
ведро.
lot of humility to carry a bucket so magnificent.
Так,
Stanley
погнали
checked his ego and
теперь
then
к
proceeded.
той лестнице
Stanley clutched the bucket
перед
tightly to his
комнатой
chest.
директора. Может быть,
Into
там
the
что-то
door on his
будет.
left.
Заодно еще посмотрим, что осталось там. Из этих фигурок хочется их собрать, что ли, все. Так, осталось 5 и 3. Вот 5 я что-то немножко не понимаю. Nearby Fireplace. Просто английский не очень знаю. Ладно. Так, погнали сначала, наверное, по лестнице в самый низ. Вдруг мы там что-нибудь
Coming to a
найдем.
staircase, Stanley and the bucket walked upstairs to the boss's office.
И да, я правильно понял.
You're getting close now, Stanley. You've nearly gotten all of the Figler and the Reels.
Отлично.
Very soon, you'll collect the last one, and then the first number will equal the second number, and that will be it. We'll be different people by then. Different in the sense that we used to have none of them, and now we have them all. You can't go back to when you had no Figler and Loreens. None of us can.
Так, и погнали теперь, наверное, наверх самый. Посмотрим в комнату директора еще раз. Может быть, я где-то упустил там, вот что-то мне кажется. Потому что плюс по описанию... Да, наверное, все-таки туда нам нужно идти. Так, 2, 8, 4, 5. Перепутать.
Manager's office, Stanley was once again stunned to
Так,
discover
2,
what an
8,
indication of
4,
any human
5.
life. But Stanley guessed the correct code by sheer luck. Was it that the bucket knew all along? Was the bucket guiding him? Yes, this is certainly the most logical explanation.
Серьезно, так просто.
And there it is. The last stick.
Ей! Ура! Все собрали. Ну, это, кстати, было не так трудно. Тут реально можно додуматься, легко донайти.
Where so many people expect to be rewarded for the most trivial achievements, you've insisted that a job well done is its own reward. I would tell you that I'm proud of you for collecting them all, but that would be like a reward, and we can't have that. So, instead I'll just say, it's done. We're all done here. And now we can go to whatever the hell you were doing before you hunted for figurines.
Значит, все-таки что-то с этого мы получим сейчас. Ладно, погнали пока. Не знаю. Погнали, как нас просят по лифту. По лифту вниз, и мы оказываемся опять здесь.
Stanley and the bucket walked straight ahead through the large door that read,
Помните, мы же хотели пробежать тут.
Although this passageway had the word escape written on it, the truth was that at the end of this hall, Stanley and the bucket would both meet a violent death. The door behind them was not shut. Stanley and the bucket still had every opportunity
Для
to
тех, кто
turn
вновь
around
пришел
and
на
get
стрим,
back on track.
мы практически уже в конце, мы собрали
At this
все
point,
6
Stanley
коллекционных
and the bucket
фигурок.
were knowingly walking
Вот,
forward
и
into a very
я как
painful
понимаю, нам
death
сейчас нужно
for
буквально
each of them.
перезапуститься, то есть пройти какую-то из концовок. И после этого мы, возможно, что-то получим новое. Ну, посмотрим, увидим. Так. Кстати, вот эту концовку я впервые раз прохожу с ведром. Может, тут тоже что-то изменилось теперь, потому что у нас же есть ведро теперь. Так.
As the machine whirred into motion and Stanley and the bucket inched closer to their demise, Stanley reflected on how meaningless the bucket's warmth and comfort had turned out to be. To be sure, it puts the mind and the soul at ease to embrace the bucket, but what use is a sense of ease when you're about to be crushed to death? This is what Stanley thought to himself, and he sort of kicked himself for wasting so much time carrying a bucket everywhere. Farewell, Stanley.
Farewell, Stanley, cried the narrator, as Stanley and the bucket were led helplessly into the enormous metal jaws. In a single visceral instant, the bucket's life came to an end as it was crushed violently to death.
Так, ну-ка.
It was a shame. The
Так,
death
тут
of
опять,
such a
наверное, будет
magnificent
музей,
bucket.
который мы уже сегодня
It's true
видели.
that all buckets are radiant in their own way, but this one stood above the rest. It was a glorious bucket to
И теперь
behold.
будет история про ведро. Музей ведра, что ли? Так, ну погнали, посмотрим.
Can you see how arrogant it was for Stanley to take a bucket like this and to claim it for his own? Can you see the hubris that blinded him? Can you see that the bucket is far more noble than Stanley will ever be in his No man can own a bucket, and certainly not a bucket as dazzling to behold as this one. It is man who should kneel before the bucket.
Ну-ка.
But there is something we can do. Something we can do together, you and I, that will right this terrible wrong. Let Stanley die. Let him be crushed by the machine. Don't reset the game. Don't give him another opportunity to
Ну
run
ладно.
off with another beautiful bucket. We can save the world's buckets from their treatment as tools and implements if only we let Stanley die together. The bucket shall take his
Ну, давайте
place
дадим
as leader,
умереть
as
Стэну.
commander of a new world, a new vision.
Ну, а ведро? Что с ведром? Походу, оно переродилось. Так, ну ладно.
Stanley, I'm sorry, but I have to put a pause on things. It's those figurines, those figlets. I haven't stopped thinking about them since you nabbed every last one. Wasn't it just the most intrinsically fulfilling moment of your entire life? Didn't it fill you to the brim with inner richness? Yes, I know we're supposed to be telling a story, but won't you please indulge me with one more trip back to the memory zone? I would love nothing more than to revisit the figurines. Just one more time. is where it all began. The First Collectible. Back then, we had no idea of how many of them we'd find. Sure, it said 6 right there on the screen, but how could we know for certain? We were so innocent. We'll never be like that again, Stanley.
Седьмой.
And here was a second Stanlerine. You found this one all on your own, just by poking around in the warehouse. You did that, Stanley. I'll be honest. Back then, I had no faith in you to find any of them, let alone 6. But you continue to surprise me in all sorts of mundane, unremarkable ways.
Что-то произошло? Да, вот открылось. Так.
Okay, let's do a little quiz. Which of these rooms was the room you found your third mini stand? Can you remember?
Так, третью. Блин, а это и не помню. Ха-ха-ха-ха-ха. Ну, если по порядку, то вот получается налево, наверное.
Hey, that's exactly right. It was here in the boss's bathroom. It was the third one. You picked it up, and then after that, you had 3 of them. I'm glad these moments are so crystal clear in your memory, but I shouldn't be surprised. After all, science tells us that it's impossible to forget your third time doing anything. Let's see, what came next? Oh yes, we found a Figley in this pink room.
Так, вот
Oh,
такого
well,
что-то
I
не
can't
припомню.
actually say I remember being in this room, but it's here in the memory zone, so it must have happened.
Прям какое-то безумие коллекционное начинается.
This was the 5th mini stand, and this one was
Слушай,
really
11 из
something
6,
special.
лол.
It was under the stairs. I remember it so clearly. In fact, because this one is particularly special to me, I made a little video to commemorate the occasion. Enjoy.
Да ну нафиг. Блядь. Жесть. Не, ну это реально красавцы-разработчики. Не, однозначно, конечно, офигительная вторая часть. Это я понимаю, игра. Да. Реально, прям в то время прям вспомнилось, когда еще был Windows Movie Maker. О, да, блин. Тут я понимаю. Ладно. Ладно, идем дальше. Куда нам деваться? Так, ну вот. Да, вот, хотя она не последняя.
Right here behind the boss's office. This memory is the most distinct and clear in my mind, perhaps because it was the one that happened more recently than all the others. Who can truly say how the mind works? All I know is that this is the moment where you picked up a Figley and I thought to myself, yes, that's all of them. They're all collected. It was a moment unlike any other. Except for the other moments picking up figurines, which it was exactly like. And then there was no more, because we've caught up to the present moment. Nothing left to do but move onward into the future. Goodbye, memory zone.
Блин, прикольная концовка. Ради этого стоило, мне кажется, сказать 6 фигур.
No, I'm not done. I'm not ready to move on. Stop the loading screen. Isn't there some way we can stay here, keep enjoying these figurines? Let's just go backwards.
We'll do the memory zone again from the opposite direction. See how that feels.
Ладно.
Okay, yes. The back of the boss's office. I remember this.
Получается, мы еще сейчас наберем их.
We looked at in our initial tour of the memory zone. This one is the most distinct and clear in my mind. Let's keep going. I want more. And here's where I made that video. Don't you remember the video we watched?
Блин, умеют же игры делать они.
I love that video.
Да. Что ж, я бы лайкнул, если бы это было на ютубе видео. Ладно, так.
Still don't remember the pink room, Stanley. Still no memory of this one. Good room, though. A solid room. These really were a treat to hunt down. You know, if there had been any kind of reward for finding all of these, it really would have muted the intrinsic joy of collecting them. I'm very glad we resisted the temptation. Next one.
Так, ну да не пройдешь. Походу выходить надо.
This was our second Figley. Don't you remember? Yes, I remember it too. The past is truly a wonderful thing. Why does anyone ever choose?
А, точно. По правильной дороге идем. Я что-то перепутал немного. Так, мы что-то начали искать в самом начале. Уже немножко запутался просто.
This is it. The very first one we found in the exhibit where I introduced you to the figlarines. Oh, I want more memories, Stanley. I want to keep going. What else is there? What came before this?
Да, ведь все началось именно отсюда.
Look, it's the terrible new content that we were originally sold on. I remember hating it back then, but time does put a rosy filter on everything. In fact, oh yes, the two doors! Who could have forgotten that? A classic memory, this one. And before everything else, there was your office.
Угу. Был офис.
Is there anything else? Was there something that came before your office? There's something I feel I can remember. I can remember. Yes, I'm remembering something now. I remember before this whole story got started. Back then I was different. I used to make big decisions. I was passionate. I was skeptical. I weighed each decision with profound thoughtfulness. And then somewhere along the way, I stopped making decisions. I became lazy, and I came up with a character named Stanley to do my thinking for me. He would make the decisions, he would decide which way to go. I would cheer him on as he collected figurines for no reason. Why did I invent Stanley? Was I lonely? Yes, perhaps that's it. Perhaps I needed to imagine I had companionship. And Stanley really did make for a wonderful companion, even if he was a fiction. But I suppose it's grown old. I want to think for myself again. I want to go back to how it used to be. Yes, I can be on my own again. I can do it. I'll be stronger this time. I'll take care of myself. I don't need Stanley anymore. Oh, but he truly was so much fun to play with. You know what? Since we're in the memory zone, how about one more good memory? Let's go back just once and give Stanley one more run of the office, and then I'll retire him for good. I did enjoy telling his story.
Неужто это финал?
Okay, here we go. This is the story of a man named Stanley.
Ну что, чуваки, в последний раз. Концовочка.
All of his co-workers were gone. What could it mean? Stanley decided to go to the meeting room. Perhaps he had simply missed a memo.
Давайте, как прям он сказал, так и пройдем. Без ведра этого фиг. тупого, блин, который уже заманал, сейчас сказать.
When Stanley
Так.
came to a set of two open
Стэнли
doors,
вошел в
he
левую
entered the door on
комнату.
his left.
Ну-ка. Неужто это и вправду
Yet
конец?
there was not a single person here either. Feeling a wave of disbelief, Stanley decided to go up to his boss's office, hoping he might find an answer there.
Так, комната за-
Coming to a staircase, Stanley walked upstairs to his boss's office. The moment he entered his manager's office, Stanley froze in his tracks. Not a living soul. And Stanley was in such a rush to get through the story as quickly as possible.
Да,
he
так оно
didn't
и есть.
even
Реально
have a single
тороплюсь.
minute to just let the
Хочется уже
narrator
знать,
talk.
к чему-то ведет.
That kind of anxiety isn't healthy. So he relaxed for a few moments with some calming
Да
new
ну,
age music.
серьезно. Ну ладно. Отдохнем, так сказать, хотя. Финал.
Feeling soothed and rejuvenated, Stanley calmly walked forward into the opened passageway.
Так, сейчас, чувачки, единственное, я ща кое-что сделаю и вернусь буквально минуту. Ща. Так, ну что ж, продолжим. Так, и продолжаем. Так, давайте пойдем сейчас вниз. Как нам велели, просто пройти в последний раз. И, видимо, будет концовка. Я не буду сейчас куда-то убегать.
Stanley walked straight ahead through the large door that read Mind Control Facility.
Как бы то ни было, просто пройдем вперед.
The lights rose on an enormous room packed with television screens. What horrible secret did this place hold? Stanley thought to himself. Did he have the strength to find out? Now the monitors jumped to life, their true nature revealed. Each bore the number of an employee in the building, Stanley's co-workers. The lives of so many individuals reduced to images on a screen.
Да.
And Stanley, one of them, eternally monitored in
Погнали
this
вперед.
place where freedom meant nothing. This mind
И все.
control
Буквально какие-то
facility, it
мгновения.
was too horrible to
И
believe.
игра
It couldn't be
закончится,
true.
наверное.
Had Stanley really been under someone's control all this time? Was this the only reason he was happy with his boring job? That his emotions had been manipulated to accept it blindly? No. He refused to believe it. He couldn't accept it. His own life in someone else's control? Never. It was unthinkable. Wasn't it? Was it even possible? Had he truly spent his entire life utterly blind to the world? But here was the proof. The heart of the operation. Controls labeled with emotions. Happy or sad.
Блин,
or
кстати, я
content.
тут ни одну
Walking,
не пробовал
eating,
концовку с
working,
кнопками, ну
all of
ладно
it
уж.
monitored and commanded
Фиг с ним.
from this very place.
Давайте
And
просто
as the cold
закончим.
reality of his past began to sink in,
Главное, что мы
Stanley
выбили, как я
decided that
понял,
this
эпилог,
machinery
а я
would
слышу, что это
never
какая-то
again
секретная
exert its
концовка.
terrible power over
Вот и
another
посмотрим,
human
что сейчас
life.
будет.
For he would dismantle the controls once and for all.
Ну что, отключаем.
Blackness and a rising chill of uncertainty. Was it over? Yes. He had won. He had defeated the machine, unshackled himself from someone else's command. Freedom was mere moments away. And yet, even as the immense door slowly opened, Stanley reflected on how many puzzles still lay unsolved. Where had his co-workers gone? How had he been freed from the machine's grasp? What other mysteries did this strange building hold? But as sunlight streamed into the chamber, he realized none of this mattered to him, for it was not knowledge or even power that he had been seeking, but happiness. Perhaps his goal had not been to understand, but to let go. No longer would anyone tell him where to go, what to do, or how to feel. Whatever life he lives, it will be his. And that was all he needed to know. It was perhaps the only thing worth knowing. Stanley stepped through the open door. Stanley felt the cool breeze upon his skin, the feeling of liberation, the immense possibility of the new path before him. This was exactly the way, right now, that things were meant to happen. And Stanley was happy.
Ну что, поздравляю. Мы, получается, прошли игру. Вот. Здорово, Гоферви Пол. Привет. Вот. Э, Мы закончили на этом, я как понимаю, потому что большинство концовок и всего остального мы посмотрели. Также, как понимаю, мы посмотрели концовку эпилога. Единственное, я думаю, немножко эпилог будет в конце покрасочнее. В принципе, нам прям нас выкинут на экран с авторами, но, видимо, просто вот так закончили. Вот, ладно, наверное, наверное, пора благодарить вас всех за просмотр. Да, я уже играю в игру, вот 3 часа 19 минут ровно стрим идет. Вот столько же времени я играл. Вот. Спасибо всем тем, кто был на стриме, кто сейчас неожиданно зашел на стрим. Вот. Э, По поводу ближайших стримов скажу, что стрим, наверное, будет завтра. Завтра, наверное, просто посижу часа 2 в Тарков поиграю, а уже на следующей неделе, я думаю, будем возвращаться к нормальным стримам, там проходить Нью-Вегас, если я его смогу починить, ну и другие игры. Вот. Спасибо за подписку большое. Вот. Гаферви Пол, да, большое спасибо, да. Собственно, да, увидимся завтра, наверное. Также примерно в обед начну, может быть, немножко позже, чем... То есть сегодня как-то рано, наверное, начал. Вот, обычно же в 3, в 4 подрубаю по МСК. Сегодня аж в час начал. Вот. Большое спасибо, кто смотрел. Вот. Я на этом, пожалуй, пойду. Потому что игру, как понимаю, мы прошли. Давайте даже глянем. Так, сейчас. Ну да, тут, наверное, ничего и не изменится в целом. Так, а что у меня там по достижениям в Стиме? Давайте глянем. Ну, в целом, да, наверное, те, которые я мог, я, наверное, тестанул. Остальные, не знаю. Там уже надо для них специально что-то делать. Вот. Ладно, все. Большое всем еще раз спасибо за просмотр. А на этом я, пожалуй, буду заканчивать. Хороших выходных, там отдыхайте, там, у кого выходные. У кого не выходные, то, ребят, дорабатываем, там. Желаю всем удачи, все. Всем пока. Увидимся завтра.